Yo, how's it going, guys? Christian Lazer here with How It's Done podcast, and I have a returning guest with you guys, John Ludwick Jr. What's going on, man?
What is up, man?
Yo, so just in case anybody has not heard about what you're doing, and they're probably living under a rock, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Man, lately it's been a lot, but basically the same as last time we spoke. Mm-hmm. I'm still doing the laser stuff, the night laser cutting and laser engraving. So that's my daily job, if you want to call it that. But recently it has just been completely insanity, which obviously we'll talk about.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
With car stuff, the music stuff hasn't been too crazy lately, but between work and the traveling, which I've tried to make work as well, try to make the traveling pay instead of cost.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah, seriously, that's the dream. But it's been crazy. No, it's been good. And we're here. We're in Ocean City. We're both trying to relax as much as possible.
Yeah, man.
I know.
So, dude, you just recently did a cross-country tour, back-to-back cross-country tour to sell your BMW and then drive back with one of your dream cars. And you called it the Governor's Club Tour Across America. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, man. So this was kind of a last-second deal that became logistically like a nightmare. Not a nightmare, but a guy that bought that Russian Lada that I had at First Class Fitment last year is in Costa Mesa, California. And he bought that car last fall, and he was interested in my 7 Series, that right-hand drive 7 Series, which I also had at First Class Fitment in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't ready to sell the car. I was like, no, it's not for sale. That's going to be one of my keepers for the most part. And I thought it was going to be. And after winter storage, I kind of decided to feel the waters out a little bit about selling the car. And I didn't even have to list it. I made like a vague post saying, thinking about possibly selling this car.
And then immediately he was interested.
He hit me up, yeah. And he was like, hey, I still want the car. And so we worked out a price. And my friend Ahmet from New Jersey has a car transport company. And he took the Lada out to deliver it last year. And so I told the guy that was buying the 7 Series, like, if it's all the same to you, I'll just drive it. I'd love to drive it cross country. Something I always wanted to do with that car. And
he was totally cool with
it. He didn't care. Yeah, I mean, there's two sides to that coin. One, if I was on one side of the country and I was trying to buy a car that was going to be coming out from the other coast, I really don't think I'd want it being driven 3,000 miles, just in case there was like any issues on the road, wear and tear on the car.
Right, that's just 3,000 miles.
Yeah,
more like age added.
Yeah, and lots of different unknown variables on the road, like a rock going through the windscreen or just whatever. So, but on the other side of that coin is if a guy's willing to drive a car 3,000 miles to deliver it to you, it's probably pretty sorted out mechanically, you know? So, and he didn't care. He's like, whatever. So I used that as an opportunity to see friends across the country that I don't get a chance to see that often, but also make it like a Governor's Club trip. So what we decided to do, I say we, my friend Corey went with me, and my friend Kyron Burnt from LA, who shoots for Speed Hunters. He worked at Race Service for a while. He's actually Ken Block's personal photographer now.
That's badass.
Which is awesome. So he took like a week off of work from Race Service to do this trip with us, a cross-country trip. But in the same process, got hooked up with Ken. So it was like this trip was a transitional period for him. He like left Race Service and was starting with Ken like the day we got back.
In between jobs, pretty much.
So he flew out from LA to Boston. Corey, Kyron, and I were going to drive this thing cross country, and we decided to do pop-up meets, TGC pop-up meets across the way. So we did Fredericksburg, Virginia, Nashville, Tennessee. We did a quick one in St. Louis, small, just a few friends. Denver, Colorado, Phoenix, Arizona, and then Los Angeles at a place called the Motoring Club, which was awesome. They opened their doors. They store high-end cars. You can pay monthly for subscription to either store your car there, or there's a hangout speakeasy type joint. So anyway, it was an awesome layout of the trip, and it all looked awesome on paper. We're going to do a meet every night. We'll do 8 to 10 hours of driving a day. We'll get early starts on it, so we'll be to our destination mid-afternoon, and we'll just drive during daylight hours. It'll be good. We're not going to be hammering coast to coast. I've done that before too, and it's exhausting. So the second we get to Fredericksburg, I didn't get much sleep the night prior because we were still prepping everything. And we made T-shirts, the ones I'm wearing here, the Sea to Shining Sea Tour Across America shirts. I made key rings. I made 400 key rings because I knew we were going to be selling merchandise at these stops.
And you didn't want that chance of it running out or not having anything.
So we did the second we got to Fredericksburg, I was like, this is not good. We're going to be out flat on this trip. We should have like had like bye days in between, so we could like recoup. But what happened was in the process of planning this trip out, before I bought my one-way ticket home from LA, Kyron was flying in from LA. Then the three of us were going to drive to LA. He'd stay home. Corey and I would fly home. My buddy Mike sent me a screenshot of a Facebook ad for a car I've been searching for probably 8 years solid. I've blown a lot of smoke about it too over the years. A few different podcasts, friends' podcasts I've been on, we've talked about it. But I've searched for a first-gen long wheelbase Toyota Century in Japan. Now, I didn't search hard for one of these cars. It wasn't like
you were just under the impression that if it ever comes up and the timing's right, I'll
if
buy
I was
it.
ready, yeah. But like every time I'd sell a car, I'd spend a couple months searching Japan for one of these cars or beyond. But they were mostly just available in Japan.
And there's only 400 of them made, correct?
Just over 400 of the long wheelbase cars. Yeah, they only made them from 90 to 97 and like 60 per year, I think were only made. So they're hard to find, even in Japan. But so before I booked my one-way flight home from LA, where we were going to be delivering the BMW, my friend Mike sent me a screenshot of this Facebook ad of a long wheelbase Century that was in Seattle. So it had already been imported to the States, and it was like a good price. And so I freaked out and like called the guy, and we got all the info sorted out. He sent me a lot of photos and videos and represented the car pretty well. So I sent him a deposit, and so rather than flying home from LA, we booked a one-way flight from LA to Seattle and decided to drive this Toyota Century fresh in from Japan with a drivetrain that's only available in Japan too. There's no parts in America. Yeah. So it's a V8 that they built for that car, just for that car.
Yeah.
And it's a big, heavy car too. So that was an added stress to the trip because now we're driving 3,200 miles to California to deliver one of my cars
while stopping at places along the way.
Like 6 stops along the way, praying that this thing, that we don't have any issues and I can get it to its new owner, get paid in full, everything's good there, fly to Seattle, and at that point, if the Century broke down anywhere across the country, it's not as stressful as if the BMW did because now we're on the back end of the trip. I could get the car to a friend's house. We could fly home. Then I could send for the car and worry about fixing it later.
Yeah.
But so we did the deal. The BMW ran flawlessly.
Yeah.
I mean, across the plains, like this is a Euro spec car in 5th gear, 100 miles an hour, 3,000 RPMs, 3,100 RPMs, maybe getting our best fuel consumption, no oil consumption on the whole trip. The car was just
flawless.
The car killed it. Like it really did. By the time we got to LA, I was assuming I was going to hate the car so much because I'd been in it for like 6 days straight that I'd be ready to get rid of it.
What were your emotions like when you like finally had to say goodbye to the car?
It was just the opposite of what I was assuming I was going to feel because the car just performed flawlessly on the whole drive.
Like, damn, I could do this again.
That's it. I almost wanted to turn around and just come home with the car. So I'm happy. I'm happy that I got what I got for the car. I'm happy that I have a Century now.
Yeah, just switch it up.
Yeah, I've wanted one of those for a long time. I've had a couple E23s, the BMWs. So I did this one just the way I wanted to. And Performance BMW magazine featured it. Fast Car magazine featured it. I've got those plaqued and on my wall. Yeah. The car can live on in my house. And
in memories, of course.
Exactly. So, I mean, with my budget with cars, I usually have to sell one to get another project, as most people do.
Absolutely. I'm dealing with that right now, or the idea of that.
With your
yeah, I know. I think I'm trying to decide what I want next, but obviously, same situation. In order for me to get something that I really want, like all my money would, is tied up in that.
Yeah. So I'm the same way. So I feel good about the whole deal. And when we got to Seattle, basically what I had done before we got to Seattle was I cross-referenced like belt numbers. It's got 3 belts. It's a V-belt system on that motor. And the owner said they looked kind of worn. So I brought new belts with me. We went to a tire shop and got new tires put on it because the tires, although they had good tread, were kind of dry cracked. And we were going to be driving that thing 3,200 miles.
You didn't want to risk that.
Right. So I got new tires put on it. And the belts didn't look as bad as he was making them sound like they were.
Did you decide to just...
We just ran it, but we had extra belts with us.
Just in case.
Yeah, so we just keep an eye on your gauges, and if we lost, water pump belt, you'd watch your temp rise. So we knew that we'd keep an eye on that stuff, and then just an overall fluid check and quick once over on the car, make sure there wasn't like a ball joint that was ready to fall out of the car or something, and we just hit the road basically.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I kept telling myself, it's a Toyota. It's good. It's a Toyota. It's gonna
Thing
be
is a
fine.
tank, man.
But it's like a massive Toyota with a motor that doesn't have any parts available in America. So here we go. We leave Seattle for Spokane. First 4-hour haul at night too. We wanted to get to Spokane early because our first TGC meet, we did one in Seattle, which was awesome. A lot of people came out from Seattle. And we didn't do one in Spokane, but we did a first 4-hour haul to Spokane. And the next morning, we did like an 8-hour haul to Billings, Montana, which we were doing a meet at a friend's shop called European Performance. And it's two twins, Ian and Quinn. They were super nice guys to open their shop up. Really cool scene out there, too.
Was that your first time meeting them? Or
Yeah, okay. Exactly. My friend Paul, who lives in Billings, has basically been like a TGC supporter for years now. And he was like, hey, if you guys come through Billings, we can put on a meet here and you guys can stay with me. And so we did that. And so that first 4-hour haul to Spokane was like flawless. So then we're like, well, we'll see what it's like on an 8-9 hour drive the next day. Same deal, not a single issue. So from there on out is basically repetitive from there. From Billings, we did Omaha. That was the longest stretch. That was a 14-hour haul in that car through Wyoming and South Dakota. And just same deal as the BMW, like no oil consumption. We kept checking the oil every time we filled up, and it was just like right on the full mark every way. And so that was awesome. I was a little nervous those first few stretches through the middle of nowhere. America was like, well, we'll see how it goes through here.
Out here.
Yeah, seriously. So from Omaha to Chicago, where our next meet was good too. That was a good run. And then Chicago to Buffalo, we did a Buffalo meet. It was awesome to see them. That was a big meet. We had like 60, 70 cars maybe.
Was that probably the biggest one out of all of them?
Fredericksburg was pretty big. We had probably 40 or 50 cars at Fredericksburg.
Wow.
We were assuming like 20, 25. Just small little get-togethers, nothing crazy.
Blew your mind.
And yeah, Buffalo was big. My friend Max from Buffalo helped get a venue at like a restaurant right on the water on the lake there, and had a whole section of the parking lot like roped off. Basically, it was a Thursday night, so there was a lot of people around. So we had friends from Toronto, Canada come down, a couple hours away. So that was really cool.
That's awesome.
Then we did a homecoming meet at the Easy Pie, which is like this really cool restaurant that has like, it's like a new age, like contemporary type food, like burgers with all sorts of, with like cinnamon buns is like the buns and stuff. But the guy's a car guy, so he was more than willing to have us there. So we had our homecoming meet in Boston.
Isn't it cool to see like those like establishments, whether it's like a breakfast shop or whatever, but it's like run by someone who's in the cars? They're always just like, you could,
We ended up there on accident with my buddy Mike, who lives, it was technically in Peabody, like North Boston. And I had my 7 Series, I think. Yeah, I had my 7 Series or something. I can't remember what I had there. Might have been the 700, the BMW700, which I have here. And he came outside and he was just freaking out about the car. And we got talking. He's got like a step van that he's bagging and stuff. And so I hit him up on our way back. I was like, hey, we're looking for a spot to do a homecoming meet. Because we'd been on the road for 2 weeks at this point. And
so was that one like sort of freestyled? Like
yeah, it was like last second.
TBD and
it's like, Friday night, we're going to be home. We're going to be hanging out in Boston. Mike, who actually is the reason why I found the Century, flew to Seattle and met us there. So when Kyron was dropped off in LA, Corey and I continued on to Seattle. Mike flew in from Boston to Seattle to do the drive home with us. So Mike knew the guy at Easy Pie too. And
that seemed like it worked out pretty well.
Man, both cars, no problems. The cars did better than we did. We're like up at 3, 2 o'clock sometimes in the morning to get like a long stretch done, and the cars were just like...
Dude, you know what's funny? I thought that you guys had like the idea of you selling the BMW and then you buying the Toyota, and then you planned out the like, oh, let's just do a tour.
Right.
But you were planning the tour and everything before you even like decided that you were buying that car.
Only the first half. The first half was like, we'll drive the BMW to LA, we'll do a bunch of stops and like pop-up meets on our way out, and then we'll fly home. Just one leg, cross-country trip, we'll go home. And then Mike knew, a lot of my friends know that I've been looking for a Century forever.
Yeah.
And then once I found that, we're like, oh boy, now we're going to fly to
Seattle. This is going to be more complicated.
Now we'll do 6 more meets on the way home, because we did a southern route on the way out, well, kind of middle of the country on the way out. Fredericksburg starting, and then basically down to Phoenix after we went through the middle of the country. And then we were going to do a northern route on the way home.
Do you think that this might be like a yearly thing for you?
Dude, I'd love to, man. So we made merchandise. Like I said, we made keyrings and shirts. 2019 was on all the merchandise, so it's like a year-specific tour. Uh-huh. Man, that's the dream, isn't it? The dream is to do something you love for a living.
And then you get to see the country, too. Like,
yeah.
That's cool.
We did real quickly, we drove from England to Austria last year for Worthersea. So we met up with a lot of friends in England. We drove to Cologne, Germany, met up with some TGC friends in Germany. And then we did like the 12-hour haul to Worthersey. And at Worthersey, we did a TGC meet, and it was massive, like way more people than I expected. And I had made TGC Worthersey tour key rings, and we sold all the key rings, and it did really well. After Worthersey, we went back to Cologne, and we had like a TGC meet in Cologne, Germany as well, where we sold the rest of the merchandise. And it basically paid for my trip over there. So I was like
win-win.
Yeah, I was like, there's got to be a way to do this and like make it work, and just have that be your job. Right. Just travel around, like hang out with people, like-minded people, and hang out with rad people that
and
do
get a
rad
new
things.
car in the process.
That's it. Well, yeah, on that trip.
And
that's
then obviously you guys did a lot of documenting. Like, do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So moving right into that, I guess I've wanted to do stuff like that for a living for a while now, and basically on the same wavelength as just doing something that you love. You don't work a day in your life type deal. But Corey, who went on the trip with me, both from England to Austria and on this TGC tour across America, he works at a performance shop. So he's a wrench. He like works on cars and performance tuning and stuff like that every day. The stuff I do is just whenever I've got one of my own projects. I'm not a tech.
Yeah, you're not touching other people's cars.
I don't have the patience for it, and I didn't grow up doing it, so I didn't like go to automotive school. My dad owned an automotive business his whole life, so everything I know I learned from him or from friends. The same deal, kind of wrenching.
But that's just like not your thing, right?
It's not, only because I don't want it to be. Yeah. I don't have the patience to work on my own stuff, let alone 8 to 6 or 8 to 8 or whatever on someone else's garbage, and then work on my junk.
You're essentially like creating an art, but for yourself, not for others.
Yeah, I mean everything
to promote yourself, to enjoy it, but like not to like sell.
Yeah, that's the plan. Originally, is every car that I buy and kind of go through or modify or whatever is because I want the end result aesthetically or mechanically is what I want. Mm-hmm. But I always try to keep the profit margin there. I don't dive in too deep on some of these crazy nut and bolt restoration builds because I know at some point I'll find something else I want, and I want the profit margin to still be there.
Yeah, that's what I like about what you do, man. You like are always switching it up.
We talked about this on my buddy Josh's Revival Motoring podcast. We talked about that too. I was like, I've got car ADD through and through. Like,
but there's nothing wrong with that, man.
There's not. It gets exhausting sometimes though, because I'll get a car done. Like the Lada. On that trip last year from England to Austria, second day over there, I found an early model Russian.
You're gonna like run
Lada.
out of cars to get soon.
I'm checking them off, but the problem is I can't afford them all at once. So I buy one, finish it, sell it, buy another one, sell it, which is fun because it's cool to look back, especially nowadays with like. We've got cameras in all of our phones. When I first started,
you weren't even documenting.
Yeah, I was 16. 2001, I was 16. So like my first car, I've got some photos, but we had flip phones.
Can you imagine if you were going all out back then with like vlogging and pictures and stuff? All those cars?
We would have made it by now for sure. We talked about that just the other day. We were here. I was yesterday maybe. Yeah. We were talking about. Like when I was riding BMX professionally, that a few friends of ours that were also riding professionally in like the early 2000s started becoming like YouTubers. But that word wasn't even a thing back then. And we kind of thought it was ridiculous. Like why on earth, I don't know, we don't have time for that. We just want to ride our bikes. Why would you walk around talking to a camera? But all those guys that did, like Adam LZ and all those kids that like started it and stuck with it when they were at a young age, like are killing it now. So it's funny, being 34 years old back, 15, 16, 17 years ago would have been awesome to have actually buckled down and done it.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so Corey works on cars every day. So he's like super knowledgeable about tons of different
So it was good to have
cars.
him by your side for this trip.
So what we wanted to do was to turn we wanted to start a shop, first of all. Not like an automotive shop that just does like routine maintenance on stuff. But we wanted to do kind of like what I'm doing with my personal cars on a more frequent level. Find a car, do some simple stuff to it, like find a rare body kit for it, suspension, wheels.
For like potential customers, yeah?
To sell, but not commission-based cars. Like we're not going to take somebody's car and like modify it. We want to do one the way we want it to, aesthetically, mechanically.
And then what you would essentially sell it.
And then sell it, okay. Yeah, or do giveaways
Basically
or whatever.
What you're doing, but like on a bigger level.
Yeah, more frequently. Yeah, exactly. Because I think it turns into like one a year for me. Like if I'll find something else I want and I'll sell a car that I have. So it's like once a year, maybe I'll sell one of my cars. So what we want to do is we wanted to turn that into like, maybe one a month, not at the get go. We'll do a couple a year first, but we both wanted to start a shop, work for ourselves, I do the Lazer thing already, but I want to do more of this car stuff frequently. So as we started putting ideas together and kind of writing stuff down, trying to be as methodical as possible so we weren't jumping into something full go, I decided, well, what if we just take the Governor's Club, since to me it's just like, I don't do much with it up until this point. It's just, I'll do stickers every now and then, I'll do key rings every now and then, or these pop-up meets. All the while I'm not paying attention to like what the community is doing with TGC. And so we decided to just take the TGC name and start basically like TGC Garage. So we're kind of in the process now of looking for a unit and getting the ball rolling with that. So what we want to do is have a strong YouTube presence, which I've been doing more of lately since last fall.
Yep. We'll touch on that later.
Yeah, it's just under my personal thing right now, but I want to turn it into the TGC YouTube and document all these cars that we do. Like if we find a car in Germany, fly there and just vlog the daylights out of it. Like document everything on YouTube and Instagram, finding the car. So everybody can watch each step along the way as like a build thread through video, through video documentation, getting it to America, doing all the parts, searching for all the crazy rare parts, and then getting the car together. But everybody knows at the end, it's going to be available for sale or giveaway or something like that. So that's what we're in the process of. And it's super exciting because I know Corey's had one foot out the door where he's at, and he's just kind of like looking for something a little bit more refreshing. And we travel a lot together and we get along well. We live pretty comparable lifestyles. So
yeah, it'd be cool to like take it to just a whole nother level.
Yeah, yeah. So and I told you before, I've wanted to start a podcast myself for like 5 years now, and this is a perfect opportunity because what we want to do is I want to start a podcast based around the shop, but also around my friends and stuff too. But we'll be podcasting about the projects that we're in the middle of.
You can set up like a studio like at the shop.
That's what I want to do. Yep. And also make it mobile. So if we're going to Germany, if we got a friend in Germany or England or wherever it may be that's helping us like locate a car or transport it. Yeah.
Like we are right now.
Exactly. Yeah. So we can go there, do a podcast with them about finding the car and all that sort of stuff. So, so there's a lot on the table. We're talking about having a lot on our plates, before we were.
Was this something that you guys like talked about like more in depth, like while you were on the road and had time to kind of think, or have you guys been always talking about this?
It never really came up in conversation until this June. We went to England for Players Classic, and that's a show that I try to go over for every year anyway. But we're in my living room and we're ready to head to the airport, and he was basically just talking about like he's just burnt where he's at, and just normal conversation about cars and stuff and like where we were at with our business. And I was just like, let's just start a shop.
Makes sense.
I don't blow a lot of smoke either. I like to think I've got a lot of like substance to like the thoughts I have. Like I want to like follow through with things and do things right.
Yeah, because I've noticed the thing I like a lot about you is if you like say something, it's like you kind of like an idea, like you kind of mean it. Like it's not like a maybe. It's like all right, like. Yeah, let's do this.
I mean, I talk a lot. I'm a chatterbox for sure. But if I've got an idea, I try to like, make sure it's something I really want to do. It's something I could follow through with. Yeah. So, but I just basically said, I'm like, we should just start a shop. And he was like, yeah. I was like, I don't want to blow a lot of smoke about it, but I think we could totally do it.
Absolutely.
And we've been on the road a lot together. So
well, it's basically like what you're already, you guys are already doing.
That's it.
Just more official.
It's what we know already. Yeah. And
it's just another step closer to just like that being like your thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And the YouTube thing's been a total learning curve. You and I were talking about that earlier. I do like to talk a lot, and I like talking to people and learning things from people, but talking to a camera has been like the learning curve to make it natural, make it seem natural. Because I don't feel like the only thing I have to bring to the table with the YouTube stuff is the content. Because I'm not doing any crazy cinematic videos or anything like that.
So you just got to keep them entertained. And
that's it. Yeah, and make so this tour across America, we vlogged the whole thing, and I'm still working on the last couple videos for that. But we're vlogging here. We're doing all the episodes here and stuff.
Do you ever find yourself in a situation where you're like where you start getting like a backlog, or are you good about like always just like
Up until this last trip, I haven't had an insurmountable amount of content to cut through and get uploaded. So on the trip, I was trying to be a day behind, which became just exhausting. Like I was trying to stay a day behind on all the YouTube episodes of what we were actually doing, but we were driving 8 to 10 hours or more a day.
How are you getting like why? Did you buy like a plan where you could just have internet wherever you are, or like a?
I should have, but But the thing is, I wasn't trying to upload to YouTube on the road. I
Oh,
was trying
that's
to do
what
that
I
at
thought.
night.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
I was,
wherever you were.
I was trying to upload and
But
edit.
you were editing.
I was trying to
on
edit on the road. Yeah, that way when we got to somebody's house or a hotel that night, I could upload overnight. It worked for the first like 2 or 3 stops of the trip, and then it was just like totally exhausting.
Right.
I needed somebody to be like our social media person on that trip, to just, I could be sending
Can you
him
imagine?
stuff and just, man, because I was doing everything myself.
Or somebody who's like there.
Yeah. So it was tough. So to answer that, basically where I'm at now, I've got a stack of stuff I need to cut through. I need to be here. I mean, it's Ocean City. I mean, it's insanity out there right now, and I need to be here every night, which I thought I would be, cutting through and getting the last few episodes of the TGC tour done. We've got a solid 20-minute or 30-minute prep for Ocean City episode I want to get done. I haven't even started editing that yet. Wow. And now we've got
So you're backed up.
Wednesday and yesterday, we have got so much stuff out here in Ocean City. So I haven't even uploaded that stuff yet.
So, dude, I was going to ask you, moving forward, you do a lot of traveling, obviously. What would you say was your biggest takeaway from this last trip?
Well, I mean, I guess you learn stuff about yourself and about your friends and about life in general when you're on the road, for sure. Whether or not it's that you prefer solidarity and you'd rather be like, I still want a home base. I still want a home with a garage, potential family someday, that whole deal too. But I think the thing I took away from this trip the most was how eye-opening it was to like want to do that full time. Now everybody says they want to travel full time. This wasn't a vacation. We were working. We were working. We were running on minimal sleep. Corey will tell you, even Kyron. I mean, Kyron's young. Kyron's only like 21. And that kid was like dead for the first like 8 hours every single day, and rightfully so, because we were just like hammering every day to try to get to the next stop. So it's work, but I do enjoy it. So I think that's going to be something I want to figure it out. Being 34 years old and not 18 anymore, you got to be a little bit more methodical about your plunges, because you want to make sure they're like financially like doable, and your ROI is there too. So the biggest takeaway was it was eye-opening for me to get back on track with where I want to be, doing something I love to do. The Lazer stuff's awesome too. I really enjoy that. I mean, we're going to be making some keyrings for you guys for the final first class fitment next week. We made some for our TGC meet here. This has been awesome because I do a different keyring here each year, and it's become this whole collect them all thing. So I that is rewarding. Like what I do there is rewarding, and that's fulfilling in its own way. But this particular trip has been an eye opener as far as like, man, if we could like just travel and like make
next level.
Yeah. So I want to do it right though. I don't want to.
Yeah, you don't really. You don't want to really rush it too much.
Yeah, and like I said,
sure it's perfect.
The Lazer thing is like my day-to-day job, so I've got a foundation there. So I'm just kind of like between the podcast, the shop, and like traveling with both of those things involved.
And now the new car.
Yeah, we're gonna dive into that.
Yo, yeah, let's talk about that, man.
Yeah,
your Toyota Century.
Yeah.
Your first JDM build, right?
Oh yeah, I've had some Japanese cars that I've like started, and then a friend or somebody would want it more than I
Here
did.
you go.
So do you know Chris Serrano? So Chris is from New Jersey, and I don't know if he's had any cars at first class yet, but he knows all the Liberty VIP guys, and I know him through some mutual friends. I had a Y33 Q45 that I did like a SEMA conversion on. I did suspension and all that sort of stuff. I did the S13 suspension conversion, but I never finished it because he was looking for one to go all the way with, and so I sold it. So I've had a few Japanese cars that I've like started. I've had this JDM like
I remember you mentioned
inside me that's been dying to come out with cars like that, like the Century, Crown Majestas. There's like I love the Boso Shakotano like VIP car culture in Japan. I love it so much. Even though
so can we expect that from this car? Or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So you're obviously gonna bag it, obviously.
I had all the air suspension stuff from my good friends Bag Riders in Vermont, like waiting at my house before we even went to Seattle to get this thing. So Bag Riders worked with me on the Lada, and they're working with me on the Toyota Century. So Will, Zach, Ian, and all the guys at Bag Riders have been awesome in that right. So I had air suspension stuff waiting at the house before I even left. I was like doing research on like what the suspension setup was in that car, and and I was like, well, let's just get this here. And you gotta obviously fabricate and build a setup for that car. There's no bolt.
Yeah, I was gonna just ask you guys how you did like the struts and stuff.
Yeah. So basically, the car's sitting in my driveway at home right now, like bone stock. We got it home, and then the second we got home, which was last Saturday, I did a full. So Airlift Performance is working with me on the BMW700. So they sent me a 3P system, their management system, to put in the 700 because I just had like a momentary like analog setup in that car because we like slammed the car together just to get it working and running. So last weekend was putting the 3P install in the 700. We bagged Corey's B5 Avant for Ocean City, not H2O, but Ocean City, and then prepped my truck. So we had 3 days after we got back from this 2-week coast to coast, back to back trip to get ready for Ocean City, which is 13 hours away from where I live. So we spent the last 3 days prepping all of our stuff, bagging Corey's car, getting the 3P in my car, and then getting down here. So the Century's come home, it's in the carport, and now we're here. So when I come home from Ocean City, I think I'm going to dive into the Century.
Nice.
Yeah, so air suspension's there. I've got an idea for wheels. I want to do like a proper like vintage VIP build on this car because it's a vintage car, obviously.
You might not know this yet. Do you have any plans for like the paint, keeping it original, repainting it?
It's had some paint work. I'm almost positive. The trip was so crazy that I didn't have a chance to really like look at. The car's immaculate. Underneath, as most cars that come from Japan are.
But you just weren't like,
Yeah. I haven't been over like every detail of the paint yet. It has yet to be even fully detailed, but it's solid. No rust anywhere.
That's awesome.
I think the paint, it's either been full resprayed or panels have been.
Panels, yeah.
So I've yet to like really look at it in the proper light. But yeah, so the plan right now is suspension, wheels, some more aesthetic pieces to the car, but I want to leave it a stock body because I think Toyota just knocked it out of the park on that car.
Do you have any plans as far as like when you want to debut it or where at, most importantly, or you haven't decided?
Oh, dude, the last first class fitment would have been perfect.
Yeah.
But with the time allowed,
you have like no time.
Dude, and no time to do it right.
To do it right.
We'd have enough time to like
do something.
Put a few sleepless nights in and get the suspension done. Maybe like even if I couldn't find the wheels that I wanted, get a set. Even if we borrowed a set of wheels, and it still would have been awesome to have at the show. Like we were talking about with Dave, it's like it'd be a cool car to just have their bone stock because no one's like ever really seen one.
That'd be pretty cool.
But yeah, it's gonna be a winter build. I want to get it done through the winter. And I don't know about using the word build. I want to assemble it or put it together over the winter. And next year, I don't know. It's going to be here in Ocean City, that's for sure. Because that thing is a strip mobber.
I was expecting that, yeah, for sure.
It was strip mobber for sure. Because, that's a long wheelbase Century.
Yeah.
And yes, since they only made a few hundred of those things, not a lot of people have seen them. So I would love.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to see that.
To cruise the strip down here. Because, tinted windows. I'm going to make Governor's Club, like embroidered procession flags, waving from the front fenders, and just mobbing that thing down the strip would be so cool. Yeah. But this winter, as far as a debut, I don't know. Like we kind of debuted it on the drive home, but as far as like what I want to do to the car, debuting it would be, I don't know I don't go to any of the WECFest shows or anything like that. Yeah. They're like 8 hours away from me. Like the New Jersey one's like 7 or 8 hours away.
Yeah. Be cool to bring it because that, obviously
that's a show that would, exactly. Yeah. So that would be, I haven't been immersed in that US JDM like car show scene before. There's a few that I think are like really.
Imagine if you like tapped in your like into that. Like imagine if you just started going to those shows more, like started making a presence and just like doing because before obviously you were building more like
European stuff.
Cars.
Imagine the Corvairs and Chevy.
Yeah. Imagine if you like moved into that.
It'd be fun. I have a lot of friends that are immersed in that community. I feel like there's a ton of diversity in that community because you get all sorts of people from all sorts of different walks of life. There's a lot of stuff that's like not my style at all. Like a lot of those import shows, I'm like, well, what am I even doing here? But
do it same.
But that car, I think, could like bring its own presence. Like remove me from the scenario altogether. That car itself will bring its own presence to it, no matter where it goes.
Absolutely.
So I more or less want people to see the car because it's in America. Rather than like what I've actually done.
Have you seen one of those in person?
First one.
I haven't seen one in person.
Yeah. This guy Caesar from Phoenix has one. Rutledge Wood from Top Gear imported a long wheelbase VG45 Century like mine and ended up selling it to this guy Caesar in Phoenix.
So the guy you bought this off of, did he just import it with the intentions of selling it when it got here?
I think so.
How did that work out?
I'm not sure. I've got a few friends that know the guy who imported it originally, and I've been trying to get in touch with him. Once things settle down, I want to like really get in touch with him and try to
Because
learn.
he might know like where you could get some stuff.
Well, that too, but I want to know more about the car itself and its history and who owned it. Because I mean, this was like a high-end Diplomat car. It's a hand-built car from Toyota.
Yeah, it'd be good to at least get more information than what you already know.
So the guy that originally imported it was from Portland, Oregon, and he has a business of importing and exporting like cars and parts and stuff from Japan. So when he brought it in, I don't know what his intentions were. It might have been to just flip it. It might have been to just own. I don't know. And then he decided to sell it. Couldn't sell it from what I heard, or what didn't sell it as quickly as he wanted to. And this kid, Nate, that I bought the car from Seattle, bought it off of him to resell it. So probably everybody made a little bit of money. But he listed
And in the end, you got a car you wanted.
Yeah, and he listed it for a good price too. So the kid that I bought it off of, that's like what he does, is he buys and sells Japanese imported cars. So the guy originally imported it. I'm not sure what the intention was. The guy I bought it from, that was the intention, was he was selling it. So that's kind of where that whole thing went. But I'd love to know more about the car.
Yeah, that'd be good to know.
Who bought it, knew, like if they were a diplomat or if they were a CEO of some company over there or something. So.
And how many miles does it have on it?
It's got a lot of miles for what it is. Yeah. It really does. It's got 250,000 kilometers on it, which is like just over 150,000 miles.
Wow.
So it's been driven. It really has. For a long wheelbase car,
It'd be interesting to find out. Obviously, I don't know if you could, but like where it's been driven and stuff.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I'm pretty sure it spent its entire life in Japan. But it's crazy that for a long wheelbase car that it has that many miles on it.
Yeah. Normally, those cars don't get driven like that.
Exactly. Much. Yeah. Well, I'd expect to see that kind of mileage on a short wheelbase, maybe, because that's like a normal sized car.
Not the long
wheelbase. Not a long wheelbase. So that intrigues me even more. I want to know more. Like, was there like a guy that traveled a ton in Japan and just had somebody driving him? Because that's a car. Like when you own that car, you don't drive it.
No, you're like
especially
rich
when
and someone's driving it.
Exactly. So I'm super curious to know who owned that car. But yeah, Caesar in Phoenix has one. He came out to our TGC meet in Phoenix, but he didn't bring the Century. Apparently, it was like broke. It was like broke at the time or something. Man. But although I'd love to see that car in person, and a lot of people may have seen that car online. My friend Keith Ross photographed it in Phoenix. Basically, what they did was he had heard that Junction Produce had made a kit for a Century in like the 90s. And when he got this limo from Rutledge Wood, they contacted Junction Produce. Or they looked for a kit first, and they contacted Junction Produce. And they're like, well, no, we don't make them anymore. And he's like, well, do you know where I could find a kit? And apparently they were like, well, actually, we still have the molds to make a kit. And he's like, will you guys make a kit for me? And so they somehow, I don't know how they worked it out, but Junction Produce dusted the molds off and made a Century body kit for Caesar for this car, but they only had the molds for the short wheelbase car. So the side skirts were short wheelbase. So they made them short ones, sent them the whole kit, and then he had a body shop guy, like a body guy of his in Phoenix, like lengthen them. It's a crazy looking car. If anyone who's watching, if you Google just like slammed Century or whatever, it shows up because it's bagged too. It's crazy. It's crazy that it's here in America. The body kit is nuts and the car looks amazing, but it's not my favorite look for the Century.
Yeah, I was just thinking that I couldn't see you doing that.
Yeah,
but you never know. I mean,
but I like the stock body, so I'm excited to do, because I mean I'm almost positive that's the only long wheelbase Century that's like on air, that type of style here in America. There's been a few others imported, I'm sure, over the years, but I'm excited to do what I want to do to mine as a stock body car. Yeah. But so I know for sure there's one other one. But yeah, Caesar came out to the meet and he brought like one of his other Lexuses, which is awesome. But I'm glad he didn't bring the Century out for the sole fact that the first one I ever saw in person is the one that I bought. You know what I mean? So It's like that's the first one I ever saw is the one that I own. So I feel good about that.
So dude, but you know what's crazy to think about? Like the last time we talked, like it was before like your BMW 700 whole build. Dude.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, man. Like more about like the build and the story if you want to share.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So I'll try to cliff note that one because that's an insane story.
Yeah, because you like took it to like Soho, yeah,
Georgia, for Alpine Vag Fair.
Yeah.
The new.
Oh, right.
I don't want to say the new Soho because that's kind of not what Corey and Paul, my two friends that put that show on. Yeah, exactly. It's just a show that is in Helen now that Soho is in Savannah. So that was the plan. What happened was, to start at the beginning, there's a guy about an hour north of me in New Hampshire in the middle of the woods that has 100 some odd BMWs out in the woods around his house. And he's just kind of like, everybody that's into European cars knows about that guy. And not a lot of people have ever seen him. He's kind of like a hermit type dude. I swung up there with a friend of mine who does know him in my 7 Series a couple years ago. And he was excited about the car because you don't see right-hand drive, BBS kitted 7 Series and stuff. So we kind of started the relationship based around that car. He knew I was just a young kid, super excited about everything he had in his yard. So we became friends. I wasn't there to buy anything off him or get something for free. I was just excited to talk to him. And he's an encyclopedia of knowledge because he's been working on this stuff his whole life. So I just loved hanging out with him and just listening to stories and whatever. So I never poked around in his backyard much. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff out front. He's got some old Porsche 912s. He's got a single cab transporter. He's got all sorts of crazy stuff. And he's got an Alfa Romeo GTV sitting in the front yard, all sorts of cool stuff. So one day we were there, and a buddy of mine was out back kind of poking around a little bit. And he was like, hey, Steve, what's this car over here? And Steve's like, oh, that's a 700. And I'm like, a BMW 700? And he's like, yeah. No, I'd never seen one in person. I knew what they were, but I'd never seen one in person. So I went running over. And here's this thing sitting in the dirt with trees growing inside of it and out of it. And it's just like the earth has reclaimed this thing. And they're a super rare car, but they're the car that is heralded as the car that saved BMW from bankruptcy. So in the 50s, BMW produced the 507, which was a V8 roadster two-wheel drive like sports car. And Elvis Presley was famous for having one, and a few other high-end people in the 50s. But they lost money on every single one that they made. That's the story that I've heard. And it tanked them. So in the late 50s, BMW was facing bankruptcy, and they designed the 700 as like a successor to the Isetta, which was that tiny little bubble car that the front opened to get into, like that tiny little, you don't see them often, but they decided to make this 2-cylinder air-cooled rear-engined car based on the Isetta, but more of a full car as like a last-ditch effort to like crawl their way out of bankruptcy. And it worked. They only made 188,000 of these cars between 1960 and 65, but it saved them from bankruptcy. And what I think is crazy is the fact that this car played such a vital role in BMW's history and the fact that they're still around today and nobody's ever even heard of one.
Yeah, man, I'll attest to that.
I mean, you've seen it sitting outside right now. It doesn't even look like a car. It's like, especially now that we've like bagged it and stuff.
Yeah.
But to cliff note the story, basically, he knew that I was like freaking out that he had one. And he had seen my Corvair, so he knew I was into like rusty junk too, or preservation builds, I guess you could call it, rather than restoration. So I was freaking out about the car, and I'm like, dude, you could put this thing on a beetle pan, because the floors were all rotted out. It's a unibody car, but the floors are all rotted right out of it. And I was like, you could like put this on a beetle pan and like drive it again. And I think he was like, he's known for not selling anything. Like,
yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, how did that go down?
So he's a typical like hoarder guy. He's like,
I can imagine. Yeah,
he's not well. He's like, he's sick. He's got like back issues and stuff, and he never comes out. People don't ever see him. So when people show up, they're like just trying to like buy. Oh, you sell me that Porsche? And he's like, no. Like he won't sell anything. But he saw like the twinkle in my eye, I guess, that I was like this thing could be back on the road, and it's like junk. It's total junk. There's trees growing through the thing. So I think he started to put it together. That he was like, all right, this kid like actually wants to like take care of this car. So a few days later I came back and I was like, Steve, listen, I can't stop thinking about this 700. Like, is that something you'd be willing to let go? On the grounds that I would drive it again. I said, I would drive it back to your house. I'll drive it down this road. Like, we'll pull it out of the woods. So anyway, so he basically, and I don't mind telling people, he basically gave me the car. He's like, well, I couldn't charge you anything for the car. You can take it because it's junk. I gave him money though. I was like, listen, I got to give you something for it. I don't want to get something for nothing from you. So we worked out a deal. Then my dad and I went back. The next step was the excavation of this car, because it wasn't like next to the road. It was like way out back, and we had to move a lot of like immovable cars to even get to it. So we trailered my dad's tractor out there, like full-blown like big tractor out there. We brought a gas-powered air compressor. We brought chainsaws, weed whackers. We brought go jacks. We brought axle jacks, axle dollies, plywood to lay down so the dollies could roll, because we knew we would have to like jig this thing up because none of the wheels would roll. We took like a day and a half to excavate this car out of the woods.
So really, your dad was like the real MVP.
He was, for sure. I came home. If he has $1 for every time I've come home, and I'm like, so what are you doing tomorrow? And he's like, where are we going? And what are we getting? So the fact, if you had told my dad, who's a late 60s like GM muscle car guy, that when I was 32, I think at the time, it was a couple years ago, that I was going to drag him up to the woods of New Hampshire and we were going to pull out this junk BMW. We had to ratchet strap the body together because it was just trying to fall apart. Yeah. There was nothing left of this thing. So long story short, we get it out, and get it back to the house. And the idea was to put it down over a Volkswagen Beetle pan. Because one, the floors were all gone in the car. There was no restoring this thing, well beyond restoration. But two, BMW 700 parts are incredibly scarce. You can't find stuff anywhere for these things. So putting it over a Beetle pan would allow me to buy parts for the car. Everything from wheel bearings all the way back to the motor. Parts are available for Volkswagen Beetles. So that was the plan. And so again, to cliff note it, I located a Volkswagen pan with a motor and all that stuff. And the plan was just to put it over a Beetle pan and bag it, body drop it, kind of like my Corvair, rusty preservation build, and just slam it on the ground. And
it looks great, man.
Thanks, man. So we have, my father and I, in the course of like 3 months, trying to get it done for Alpine Vag Fair this past year in Georgia. In about 3 months, we probably put like 750 hours into this project. Like we hammered. We had to shorten the Beetle pan by over a foot to meet the wheelbase of the 700. That's how much smaller than a Beetle it is.
Isn't that crazy to think about?
It's tiny, man. And now that you see it next to like your car,
Yo, dude, I was pulling up to here and I was like,
almost drove right over it.
oh my God, that's so small.
Every time I'm like driving the strip, like my buddy Adam's here and like I lifted a Land Cruiser and I pulled up next to him and he's like, oh my, I'm like, don't run over me.
I was like thinking about taking a picture of our cars together. I was like, my car looks so huge.
I thought I didn't have time to, but I wanted to make one of those giant whip flag antennas that are on the back of go-karts.
Yeah.
So when I'm cruising the strip, people can see me. You know, like on go-karts, they got those big whip antennas with like the orange flag.
Yeah.
So people in cars can see you. Yeah, I wanted to make one of those for that car because it is tiny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we shortened the Beetle pan. We built like a full like tubular chassis inside the body to give the body rigidity, but to also be able to mount it to the Beetle pan. Bagged it. We had to custom build the wheels.
How long was that like from start to finish?
Only a few months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I collected the parts over a year and a half. I collected the pan. I kind of tinkered, got the motor running. But as far as like the hard push to mate the two was about a 3-month deal from like January to March.
Okay.
And then in May, it might have been 4 months, January to April maybe. Yeah. And then in May, I trailered it down to Georgia.
So I know that you like to take your time with your builds. Like you obviously don't like rushing things. You're like to perfect it. How do you feel about the length of this build? Do you think it was rushed? Do you think it was perfect? Like what was your stand on that?
It's funny you think that I've got like leather patience with this stuff because I feel just the opposite. I feel like that 700 build was very typical me because I'm like, and luckily I work out of my father's shop. He's got like a hobby shop, and I'm grateful to be able to work on my projects out of there. And some of these like really involved projects, like my Corvair, my 52 Chevy cab over that we're building, in the 700, my dad is like instrumental. Like we build these cars together, and it's like I can't believe he was even down to play ball in like 3 months. Like, hey, in May I want to take this car or whatever that is over there. It wasn't even a car. It was like a body falling apart with like a pan that has a motor in it. Like, yeah, I want to drive that. I want to like be able to take that to Georgia. So I feel like that was a typical build because I feel like if I'm not under the gun and I have to get it done, I won't get it done.
Right.
That's why my 52 Chevy at home has been under a tarp for 4 years. Like we got it like half done. And it felt like this insurmountable task to get this thing done. I envy the guys that can do a 5-year build and stick with it. Because after like, a year into a project, I see something else. And I'm like, oh, I could get that done in like 2 months. I'll just do that instead. So a lot of my friends are picking on me because I haven't gotten the truck done.
So do you have any plans for like what you want to do as far as like how many cars you have right now? Because you still have the 700 obviously, and you're going to build the Century. Like, are you planning on like having them both like modified and finished at the same time, or will the 700 go and then only have the like Century? Have you thought about that at all? Or
I haven't really thought about it, but I don't think I'm going to sell the Corvair or the 700.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people offer what I would think silly money for those things.
But you want to keep them around?
I kind of do. Yeah. My dad and I built those cars together, and the cars that I put together myself, like the 7 Series and the Lada,
stuff because your dad, like you, yeah, it kind of has more of a sentimental.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. And I like that. I mean, he'd be the first to tell you if you have a good offer on one of those cars, it's just a car, just sell it, But not only that, I really enjoy the cars. I love driving those things. I like the fact that they're like super weird and have this like shock value.
I feel like you'd probably be like sad to let one of those go.
Yeah, for sure. Those is what's funny is I like the European stuff, but those cars kind of like define me in a way.
Yeah,
as far as
like you.
Go. They're like a complete mess, and like I'm a complete mess. Like I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just like flying by the seat of my pants.
And so obviously like moving on, you obviously documented, like, you know, the cross country tour, and you're going to be documenting this, the Century build. Were you documenting the 700 build like a lot like that?
Yeah,
Or
that
it
was
sort of new still.
Yeah, that was at the beginning of me buying like a camera and doing the YouTube thing.
Yeah.
So the extrication of the car is like mostly just cell phone footage. But once all this insanity's done, I'm going to put together like a series of YouTube episodes of the 700 build, because I know a lot of people are interested in that. So unfortunately, I say unfortunately, the entire extrication of that car is all just cell phone footage, but I can still add that into the episode. But it wasn't until just after that I got a camera and got set up for that stuff. But yeah, I did document that. My life got like stressful this spring, and so I stopped vlogging a lot of that, which is like my biggest regret. My biggest regret of like this spring, of like where my life went this spring, was the fact that I didn't stay as excited about that project as I wanted to be. So after this spring, basically, I made some changes and like got back on the rails and got back focused again. And so I look back on that and I'm like, man, I wish I wasn't like so unmotivated, not to like finish the car with my dad, but to like be down there and be excited to like talk to a camera or people on a camera. And
what do you attribute that like spark that you wanted to like get back on the rails again with that? Like, what do you attribute that to?
Well, I went through, I was just in a relationship that was just like draining me, you know? And so, with most people, that's where I lost my motivation, because I was focusing on stuff.
Yeah, you get like comfortable and you're like, life is good right now. Let me just take a step back on the passions and focus.
Well, it was just the opposite. It wasn't a good relationship, and it was like draining me because I was stressed about that. And then I wasn't focused on like the excitement level of like building this car with my dad that probably hadn't been built before in the style that we were doing it in. Right. So yeah, life was just stressful this spring. And so I look back on that and I'm like, man, I really wish I had like just stuck it out and like really like documented that build way more than I did. I do have a lot of stuff though, which is good. I'm going to put all that stuff together. And that's why I've been so crazy with traveling and stuff. Like after this spring, I just like, got on the rails, dude, left the station, and I'm like the next like year and a half, almost 2 years are booked out flat. Like I'm planning on shipping the Corvair to Europe next spring. Whoa. I'm going to keep it in Europe like all summer. I'm going to travel back and forth and take it to all the shows over there. I'm making up for lost time. I feel like
you're going ham.
I just feel like I wasted a lot of time this spring and didn't get as much done as I wanted to. So,
dude, what's really cool is I remember the last time that we met and we were doing this podcast part one of this, which everyone should listen to. I remember you were like, yeah, I really want to get into vlogging, and that's cool that you're doing it, man. Like you do it.
It's hard.
You took that leap and you're doing it. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when we were talking and it was just like an idea. And I remember when we sat down after our podcast, you were like, damn, I want to do a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like super excited for that, man.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I think I'd always wanted to, because of the amount of people I know, the amount of people that I've been put in touch with through music, BMX, the car community. I was like, man, this would be awesome. And I clearly, like, if you know me, I'm like always talking to somebody, especially at places like this. I was joking last night that my voice is usually gone by Friday night in Ocean City. So I was like, great, we're going to do a podcast. I'm not even going to have a voice. It's already like on its way out. But I'd always wanted to do a podcast. And then once you and I sat down, it was like the first one I actually did. And
they're fun. They're really fun.
Yeah. And I was like, man, I could totally get into this. So I think between trying to do more Instagram story stuff to help articulate, I use the Instagram story platform as like my, like
what's going on
it's
right
like,
now.
It was my entry to articulating myself.
It was like you were sort of like, sorry to interrupt you. You were sort of like preparing for it.
That's what I was doing. Yeah. I figured Instagram story would be like an easy way to like articulate myself, try to get my thoughts in order as like on the fly.
And most importantly, just get comfortable with that.
That's it. Yeah.
Way of showing things.
And try to speak, speak with purpose and not just jumble my words. I speak really fast usually, so I wanted to like slow down, articulate myself better. So through Instagram story, I think it helped a little bit because I didn't want to be monotonous. I didn't want to sound boring, but I didn't want to sound like I was trying too hard either. Be like, hey, what's up, guys? Like whatever, have some stupid name like it's me again, you know. So I want it to be natural. I want it to be me.
And that comes over time, obviously. But that's what I was struggling with when I was doing the whole.
It's hard. People don't realize it. People watch like these YouTube guys or just any person that's like a commentator or a host, and it's natural. It's like, man, that's like, it's almost like acting in a way.
Yes, I remember when I would see people doing that, and I'd be like, "Oh, like I could do that." That's easy.
And then you start doing it, and you're like,
"Wrong." I would see like Crispy, and I'm like, "Damn, I could do this." And then, like, nah.
And the thing is like once you get comfortable, that's all it is. You're comfortable,
right?
So it started with me talking at a camera, and I was like automated. I feel like I was trying to think of the next thing, and now that it's barely been a year, I guess. I did vlog last year at Ocean City, but I had no idea what I was doing. Right. I still kind of don't.
Do you think that you've progressed a lot since then?
Yeah.
I was looking at your videos and I was like,
to me, it doesn't. To me, it doesn't feel like it because I feel like I'm still doing the same. It's like tenacious. I'm like, after we're done this, we'll be out on the strip, and I'll be talking to tons of people, and I'll be like driving around, and we're selling the key rings left and right. But then it's like, oh man, I gotta make sure I like video this stuff. Like whoever's in the car with me. Do you know Aiden?
Yeah.
Okay, so Aiden was in the 700 with me yesterday, and he was like freaking out because I was taking him for a ride in the thing. And we're at a red light, and he's like, a whole group of kids come swarming around the car, being like, you know, looking for key rings. So we pull in off the sidewalk real quick, and they're like throwing money left, right, and center for key rings. And I told Aiden, I'm like, pick that camera up and film this, you know, because I won't have any of this stuff once I get home. So I think what I'm getting better at, although it feels like it's the same. I feel like it's the same game that I'm playing that I did last fall. I'm getting more natural with it, which I guess is what's showing because I don't have any like new cinematic value to any of these vlogs. I am adding a little bit more.
So it's a little bit more like raw, right? Like,
yeah, but it's like it's more natural feeling. I'm not like.
No, I'm saying it's more raw in terms of it's like film and basic cuts and like. That's it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're not doing any like captions or like.
Right. I'm doing Instagram handles. That's basically it. Mm-hmm. And through like time lapse stuff that we're doing, like whether or not it's like time lapse driving or time lapse like landscape stuff, I'm adding my own music into it, which is something I want to add more of in the future.
Yeah.
There's not enough hours in the day, but this winter I want to spend like a lot of time. I want to take like a full month and finally finish my Rising Sea record, like the actual album. But then I want to write like 4 or 5 like records of just instrumental music that I'll use as a cache of music to use for all the YouTube stuff. That way, all the music's mine. Any bit of music you hear in any of the vlogs,
monetizing or copyright issues.
Right, exactly. It'll just be me. Yeah, so the whole channel will be like organic. It'll be all me. So it's been awesome on this cross country trip. The first few episodes that were posted has been a massive positive feedback from people on Instagram and YouTube saying like these are getting better and better, which is awesome because like I said, I feel like I'm doing the same thing, but I think it's getting more natural feeling and not quite so like forced.
What would you say has been the biggest challenge for you?
Time. It's like being self-employed, having the shop at my house, you're married to it. If it's busy, it's like I'm just grinding. And then if I'm on the road, I got to remember to like film. And then once that's done, when I get home, I need to remember to take time to upload to my hard drive, then put everything in Final Cut and then edit, get it done. Then it takes, because I only have like 1,000 subscribers, it still takes like 6 to 8 hours to upload a 20-minute video. So I got to make sure I upload that stuff overnight. And it's time. That's been the biggest hurdle is like trying to dedicate time to doing everything. Like I said, I need to be sitting here in the condo at night finishing vlogs.
Then we're talking.
I know, man. It's crazy. We joke that I need a secretary. All my friends like, man, you need a secretary. And I'm like, I know. I need, if any, yeah. And then you need money to pay for a secretary. Right, then it's like, oh, man.
Then you're like, I'll just do it myself.
It's crazy. At the end of the day, like life is so good. You know what I mean? Like I love what I'm doing. I wouldn't be doing this or stretching myself thin if I didn't. So I'm happy. Like 2019 has been like one of the best years. Like life is a roller coaster for sure. I've had some ups. I've had some downs. More downs at the beginning of the year than ups. But man, like I told myself I was going to turn this year around. It was going to be an amazing year. I didn't really want to sell the 7 Series, but the whole trip came together, bringing a dream car home, traveling and seeing friends, but trying to make it a job as well and try to like make money doing the whole thing too. It's good. Like I stress out about time. I stress out about everything on my plate, everything I want to do. I keep thinking about a podcast. I'm like, when am I gonna have the time to do that? But it's like, we're not getting any younger. Might as well just do it. Just do it.
Dude, can you imagine doing all this and not document it? Doesn't that sound fucking crazy?
That's what I did with, like, I mean, on like the BMX
old
trips.
school ways.
Yeah, like all the stuff I did with BMX, we had filmers and photographers and stuff with us. So there's like documentation of that, but it wasn't on like an intimate level. You know, intimate level as far as like people following your every step. Like, hey, it's like, you don't have to document your entire personal life, which I'm not doing, but it's like, in an event like this where you're like on a specific trip, it's like, it's like in the morning we're going to get coffee, but at coffee we ran into these guys, and these guys have this really sweet thing going on, so we're filming this too, and I love it, man.
Dude, how much of like what you do and like all this stuff, like, do you ever miss stuff documenting wise?
A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff.
When I'm on my own, Corey's been clutch because it's so funny. The people I've been talking to down here this weekend that followed the YouTube videos of our cross country trip, like, know Corey and I get that people know me because I'm always a chatterbox. I travel a lot. I just love meeting people. So I get that people know a bit about me. But like Corey is like super quiet.
Yeah.
Doesn't I mean, in our circle of friends he talks a lot, you know, but like out in public he's just super quiet. So it's so funny. We were talking to some guys last night. We were talking about the YouTube videos, and they're like, dude, like Corey's like totally like your bodyguard. Like he's just quiet in the background, not saying anything. And it's cool that they've like kind of come on this ride with us.
Yeah.
But Corey's been instrumental in like filming a lot of stuff because I do miss a lot. I'll get talking to a group of people and the whole night goes by. And then I'm like, oh, I should have been filming stuff. So Corey's like been really good at like just grabbing the camera.
That's cool that he's been like your right-hand guy.
For sure. And we want to start the shop together anyway. So it's been awesome that he's been helping me film a lot of stuff too. Cool. So, because at the end of the night, after I'm done talking, people have left the meet that we've been putting on. I'm like, oh, and he's like, no, I got like all the cars over here.
Dude, tell us about your setup with all this.
Like hardware wise?
No, just for like documenting like your cameras and all that stuff. Like,
as far as my hardware, so it's basically like an entry level setup right now. Because I don't want to go too crazy with buying gear that like professional guys are using, because there's no point in spending a ton of money if I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
So, like I was telling you earlier,
upgrade later if it costs time. If not, it's still cool.
So I had a Canon 60D that I bought off a friend years ago to just start doing photo and video work. I like photography, but I feel like I've got a good eye for composition, but I've got like a color deficiency. So when it comes to post work and like color grading, like I'm a complete mess. I don't know what I'm doing. So I didn't really get into still photography too much. But that 60D doesn't have autofocus on video. So you can't do anything. Like if you're walking up to somebody, you have to like literally be focusing it as you're walking around. So I bought a 70D, which is obviously pre 5D Mark platform Canons. So I bought that for just a few $100, and I already had some Canon lenses. That's got autofocus. So I've got that with like a Rode mic. We were talking about that earlier. Super basic there. I've got a GoPro now. I bought one of the Hero 7s.
What do you use the GoPro for? Like
in-car time lapses.
Okay, got it.
There's a lot of YouTube guys that I've seen that film their episodes and their vlogs only with a GoPro, with like a handle with a light under it, so you can have like
what kind of a handle are you working with? Do you have like a Gorilla Pod, or what do you use?
I've got one of the Gorilla Pods that I use with my DSLR, the 70D.
Yeah.
If I'm doing any static shots in the shop and I'm by myself, I'll use that, and that you can like make it fit to anything.
And then Corey was telling me you guys have like a lot of batteries, right? For your
Dude, you have to. That's the one thing you'd forget. We're on the road.
Remember we were here, like, and I was like, shit, I gotta charge up.
Dude, trust me, we're learning this together, because on this trip, I knew for a fact, I'm like, all right, I need like 4 extra GoPro batteries, because I know for sure we're gonna be eating those things up on the road.
Yeah.
We got on the windshield. I bought like your typical GoPro setup. I bought a GoPro, a bunch of batteries, a bunch of micro SD cards, and like some window mounts, for them. I only have one right now. I think 2 would be fun. But I have like a handle, like a handheld thing for the GoPro in case we were walking around with it.
Yeah.
Because I watch some of these guys' YouTube videos, and like that's all they use. That's it. They got GoPros, and that's it. But I already had the Canon at that point, so I use that for most of the walk around stuff, because the audio is way better than the GoPro with like a proper mic.
Yeah, that's the one thing where we fall short on a GoPro.
I'd rather walk around with a GoPro with a little handle, because it's way more incognito, and you're not holding this big camera up. But the video and audio quality of the Canon is really good.
Speaking of learning curves, you remember when we tried to do the podcast at H2O?
Last year? Yeah. And you were a complete stress case.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, like we met up up and we were gonna do a podcast, and you're a morning person. It was really early, drinking your coffee like today, and like my podcast was like super new. Like
you only done one with Nick Kraft. That was it.
That was it. And I had like my vlogging camera, which later found out that it's not good it doesn't run for a very long time.
Right.
So like
I think John and I were, you and I 30 minutes.
Yeah, you and I were like sitting down talking, and then like it shuts off, and I was like, fuck. And you were like, you're like the nicest person. You were like, it's cool. We'll just redo it. And we were like, we redid it, or we tried to. And then we were like talking about stuff that we had already talked about. And I was like, oh, whatever. And then it turns off again. And we're just like, this is not our day.
That was the first podcast that I'd ever been on.
Yeah.
And so, although
remember when you were like shaking your leg?
Yeah, I'm just a, I'm like antsy. I've got ADD or whatever you want to call it.
Dude,
I'm always like tapping or like tapping my foot or something, and I could tell because you were like looking at my foot like freaking out, like he's got to stop that.
Dude, I was fucking bummed. I was like heartbroken.
Yeah, you were stressing real hard. I was trying to bring you back.
Yeah,
down to earth.
So long story short, I don't use that camera anymore. But yeah, man, it's all like such a learning experience.
It is, and you get better. It's like anything. Practice makes perfect. You
I know.
Like just doing the same thing or the same type of thing over and over, you get better at it.
So what's your vision for the podcast, or maybe a premise, or like what do you like? Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
Man, the podcast. So I was stressing about a name. I played music my whole life, so coming up with a band name is like super important.
Dude,
you know what I mean?
so
Like
hard.
bands or like your podcast, it's like that defines. And if not, it'll define itself later on. Like I wanted to change the name of the Governors Club so many times because it started as like a joke. All these like younger kid like hype little car clubs, or the windshield banner craze in like 2011 was getting huge. So we started the Governors Club, a few friends and I, as just like a joke because we all had like Matt Wallen, Nick Pro, a bunch of my other older friends that had vintage Mercedes and BMWs were a part of it. And I was like, let's be the yacht club guys. Let's be like the country club guys. We've got these vintage high-end classy cars. We'll make like a sticker with an anchor on it. We'll be the Governors Club. You know, it was a joke.
And then it started from there.
And so we made stickers for H2O 2012. I had my 1960 Mercedes there. Matt Wallen had his E38 there. Nick had his Mercedes wagon. Yeah, all good days. But we had Governors Club stickers, like these anchors and like this crest. It's like crest looking sticker on the back of all of our cars in the same spot, center of the back window, down at the bottom. And it was like 12 of us maybe rolling around with those stickers, and people were like, hey, what's the Governors Club?
This?
And I'm like,
and then people like caught on.
I'm like, don't worry about it, it's a members only thing. And as a joke, but that exclusivity made it like more desirable apparently. So over the years I started making stickers, shirts, and like just selling them. To this day people are like, how do I become a part of the Governors Club? And I'm like, you just like buy something on the web store. Like it's just a thing. So I wanted to get rid of that word club. As it became more of a serious thing, I'm like, I want to get rid of this, but it became its own thing, like branded itself. We got guys in Japan, China, Europe.
Yeah,
we got
it's
guys
awesome.
in Australia.
It's reach now.
People are putting, to this day, man, it's been around for like 7 years now. To this day, it blows my mind that people are putting our handle in their like bio on Instagram. That blows. I've never once asked somebody to do that. We got guys in China, Japan, Europe, all over the place with like the handle. And I'm like, why? Like, I want to know, like, why? What have we done? What have I done? Or what has the TGC in itself as an entity done that like makes you want
to like rep it?
Yeah, but it's there. So I was telling Corey, because Corey was like, are you sure you want to use the TGC name to like start the shop? Or do you want to, I know that's your baby. Do you want to keep that? And I'm like, no, like I want this to be something tangible for the first time in its life, because I feel like it's just been this random thing that just exists on Instagram, and every now and then I'll do keyrings or shirts or stickers. And because when people say, what's the Governors Club? I'm like, I don't know.
I don't even know.
I don't know what it is. I'm going to make some stickers and stuff. Like, you want a sticker? Like, that's all it's been. Now it's like there's an opportunity to the cars I have myself become TGC cars, because I am TGC basically.
It's your brand. It's your look. It's you. Yeah.
So the cars become TGC cars by default basically, but I want to like start making TGC cars. Like with Corey, we can start actually. We'll be methodical about it. It's like, we're going to do a Mercedes wagon. We'll get that. We'll do this kit. We'll do these wheels. We'll have it look like this. And then we'll like present it as a TGC car that somebody can buy. Or we'll do cool giveaways, not sketchy raffles. We'll do like actual,
sketchy raffles.
We'll do like actual giveaways and I love that idea, because I make merchandise for guys on YouTube that do car giveaways, to where it's like, spend $20 on the web store and get an entry to win this car or something. So they're paying me to make leather key rings or wooden rearview mirror hangers or something that they end up selling on their web store. Immediately, all I'm thinking is, I could make all that stuff myself for my own giveaways, and that cut out a middleman type
Yeah.
deal. So that's kind of the idea of TGC. I thought about changing the name over and over and over again.
But it's you.
To answer your question, to go back, basically, what I want to do with the podcast is integrate it into what TGC is, or what I want it to be now. I want it to be the shop. The idea with the podcast is to do exactly what you and I are doing right now. Like just,
And
even if it's
you
just,
would have guests, obviously.
yeah,
right?
oh, absolutely. Because I'd like to have a studio. I mean, while we're in New Hampshire, it's kind of tough. Like when you're in LA or Nashville or Richmond or somewhere that's like central, you get more people coming through. So you could have an actual studio where you've got people visiting.
Yeah.
I do have a lot of people that come visit me, but it's like, it's an exclusive thing where like friends from like Europe might come over
Right.
to visit me for a week.
Yeah, that's my problem with the podcast. I mean,
Yeah.
I live in DC and people come
Pretty
through there
central.
and stuff.
Yeah.
But I wish I was in LA, man.
Yeah.
That's where I feel like I do most of my.
Everybody's,
when I do it,
yeah. So it will be a traveling podcast, but it's not just going to be automotive. Like,
And you're straight though, because you travel. So
yeah, that's why I want to do it. I'm like, why am I not doing this? It's one more thing added to the itinerary when I travel, but I'm already talking to people. I might as well just set stuff up, a camera and some microphones,
Just
and just
do it.
make it an episode, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't want it strictly automotive related. It'll be automotive based for sure, based around the garage, but I'm going to talk to friends that I played music with over the years, or kids that are still playing music. I want to integrate the BMX thing, or any walk of life, kind of like what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not just one specific community based, which I like in some podcasts, but I want to do everything for sure.
dude, what's crazy about my podcast is like I didn't have like a premise really in the beginning. Like I gave it a name, how it's done, but you kind of just figure it out, you know, like along the way. And like I what's funny is I took a step back like when I took like that year off with it, and I'm obviously doing it again, and I thought to myself like, what do all these people have in common? Like,
Right.
and I looked at it and it's cool. It's like all these people are like artists, but
Yep.
they have like their own companies. They're not just like making art just to make it. Like they're making art to like with a company. Like,
Yep.
like you're making these cars and you're making these like leather, like you know, with your laser engraving thing, but you're like, but it's creative. Like,
Right.
It's your thing.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, that's sort of just like the direction I want to go to. So I'm like sort of like excited to see like what direction you take your podcast.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited. My biggest, I don't want to say fear, but the thing it's always in the forefront of my head is like, is it going to be interesting enough that people want to listen to it? You know, and I feel like just in the stuff that I experienced through traveling or with friends and stuff, I feel like there's so much content there that like there's like an overwhelming amount of stuff we
Yeah.
can talk about that people are actually interested in. Because the same thing with the business, with like when I first started the business, I didn't know how to like price stuff. I'm like, I don't know, like $20, $30. And people are like, no, that's $100. Like, don't ever undersell your stuff. So the fact that I wouldn't spend $100 on something that I was going to make doesn't mean someone else wouldn't.
Right.
So for me, with the content in the YouTube and the podcast and stuff, I sit back and I go, I don't want to sit there and listen to someone like me talk about something like that for 2 hours. But that doesn't mean that someone else wouldn't. So I try to push that aside. I built these brick walls up and said, nah, you know what? I won't do a podcast because no one's going to want to listen to it. But then when I break that wall down, I'm like, oh, you know what? There probably are a lot of people that would want to listen to it. So I'll just do it anyway. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But at least I'm doing it. And with the YouTube thing, that's exactly what I did. And it's been an overwhelming amount of people messaging me on both Instagram and on the YouTube comments being like, so excited you're doing this. Like, I feel like we're living vicariously through you on these trips. Like, and people are like talking, even here in Ocean City that have watched the videos on this last trip. They're like, dude, like when you came into Billings and like that happened or this happened, like, oh, it's so cool to see you guys like do this or do that. Or it's so cool that you met up with so-and-so in Omaha. And so I'm like, wow, people are actually like watching this and actually retaining it. They're like remembering what happened. I don't remember what happened. Mm-hmm. And I'm filming it and I'm living it. I'm like, I don't really? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I think if you did do a podcast, I feel like it'd be cool because like, you know, it's always fun talking to you. And like you always talk to a lot of people, so I feel like that would be like a good way to like show that.
I think so, yeah. It's like I said, it's something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I feel like I'm last to finally do it. Same with the YouTube. I feel like everybody's doing it. And I'm like, I guess I'll do it too. But I think just it being an organic, natural, and that's like contagious in a way. You know, when people are just doing like what they do, and it's natural and they're not forcing it and they're not like there to like make money. We all want to make money doing it because the dream is to do something you love and
But when
make
you're
a
in
career
that
out of it.
stage where you're just doing it for fun and you're like just, rolling with it, like that's when you really,
Yeah. So I mean, I think if I've learned anything in this whole last couple of years of starting the YouTube or starting to be more present on Instagram, because like my personal Instagram is just there. I don't do anything to create an audience there. Same with TGC. TGC, I got to share for a while. It'd be like once every 4 months, I'd share a photo on TGC, and it's just going. And the same thing with my personal one. But I think the one thing I've learned, the best thing I've learned out of this, with like doing more Instagram story stuff and taking people along with like what we're doing, is to just take those leaps and just do it. Like because I don't like talking to a camera. I don't like walking down the street in public or around people and being like, hey, so we're here with my friend so-and-so, and then everybody's like, people that aren't used to a camera being around, like kind of
like,
watching it, or in an airport, like walking through an airport being like, we're at Boston Logan, we're headed to England, we can't wait to see you guys, stuff like that.
People are like,
It's so weird. Yeah, so it took a while for me to break that down, but I think the thing I've learned most is to just take the leap, just do it.
And
Who
it'll
cares
pay
what other
off.
people think? Don't stress about what people think. Just be yourself. Don't fabricate anything, as far as like the way you are. Just be you and just do it. I think that's the most.
and then people will like follow.
Yeah, because that's the coolest thing about YouTube. If everybody acted the same or did the same stuff, no one would care. So like a lot of this YouTube stuff, like these guys that are like making videos or basically presenting their lives, it's like they're all different. And I think that's the coolest thing. Like the stuff that you talk about, the people that you have on the podcast, the life that you live is different to mine. We're comparable in certain ways across the board with other people, but everybody's got different life experiences and have different things to say, different outlooks on things. And I think that's what makes this whole thing really interesting, is like it's diverse,
And plus, dude, if you weren't doing this, I feel like people wouldn't like really know who you are. And and I guess they're getting like a glimpse of like your life, your friends, like your passions, and like I hate to be repetitive, but like who you are. And that's cool. That's cool that's like resonating like on a platform.
Yeah, and I think there's I don't want it to seem like a self-promotion thing. I'm not trying to like
You're just having fun, man.
That's
showing
it.
everybody stuff.
That's it. Yeah, because I mean, it started with just friends I knew that were like, "Oh man, I wish I could travel with you," and I was like, "Well, I guess if I like photo and video document everything, it's like I can show you what's going on."
Man.
Yeah, so it's been a natural thing.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the future as to what's coming because I feel good. 2019's been awesome, man. Like I'm
glad to hear that, man.
Man, like coming into this fall, I'm like, there's so much stuff on the burners, and I'm really excited. Once Corey and I lock in a unit space, we're going to be in New Hampshire for like at least another year. We'd like to, as we were saying before, I'd like to get down towards Virginia probably, and be closer.
We'll
to
be a
port.
lot closer.
Heck yeah, and and start chiseling away all the stuff I want to get like rolling, get the gears turning with a lot of different stuff, and not be afraid of there's not enough hours in the day, and just grind and just do it. And I'm no motivational speaker by any means. I'm actually trying to like keep that motivation alive myself, but to just chisel through it. I mean, I spent some time this spring like stressed about a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have been stressed about. And now that it's like I'm like clear headed and focused, it's like
you see
it's such an optimistic outlook because it's like, man, like the world is ours. We can like literally
do whatever we want,
grab whatever is you want and like take it, So I'm excited to start the podcast, the shop. I'm excited to like finish like the Rising Sea album, which I still haven't done since 2 years ago when we did this podcast. But like we were going to talk about, I did end up writing some soundtrack pieces for the Felgen Tilt.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that, man. Tell us a little bit about that.
So basically, when we were on our Wörthersee tour last year from England to Austria, we spent some time in Germany. And after Wörthersee, we stayed in Dresden, Germany with the Felgen Tilt guys, who are a video production and like apparel brand out of Germany. And they've umbrellaed themselves. They've got a couple companies underneath it. They do the Messer wheels, and they do a few other things like underneath this blanket.
Yeah, they got a lot going on.
They've got a 5-story building in Dresden. A 5-story building, like different floors for different.
Dude, they
like,
pump out a lot of merchandise.
People don't realize that Felgen Tilt, like they got a lot of irons in the fire.
Operation is crazy.
And it's like legit too. Like the top floor is like their like break room and like cafeteria with like a study. There's like a study like library in there. I'll send you some photos because I know you're
want to
doing
see that. Yeah.
But anyway, they've got some crazy stuff going on. Well, when we were staying with them, my friend Kevin Zimmerman and Bremy, who are both like the social media end of Felgen Tilt, we were just walking through Jesden. They were taking us to like this breakfast spot, and Kevin was like, we were talking about music. Kevin's like, "Are you doing much with music?" And I'm like, as much as I can, considering the time I have. And they're like, "Well, we wanted to talk to you about doing some music for some of our movies." And I'm like, "Dude, that's the dream job." As you and I talked about a couple years ago, the dream job is really to like sit in the studio and write music for like movies. That'd be like, that's the dream job. So this is like, this was a perfect stepping stone because they're like legitimate. They're like a legitimate video production company in the automotive industry. And they're like, "Yeah, we'd love to have you write some stuff." So I was like, this would be amazing. So for their Worthesy movie, 2018 Worthesy movie, I wrote the whole intro. It's only like a minute long maybe, but I sat down and wrote an exclusive piece for the intro to their movie. And it was really cool.
That's badass.
Marty from Felgentilt was like super happy with it. And they did a reboot. They did like a second 2018 Worthesy movie. And they had me write another piece for a segment that's in that as well. Yeah. And so I talked to JJ Larson too, who's with Rotoform full time now. He was with Dubcore for a while, but he owned Dubcore. JJ, Yep. So I talked with him at Simply Clean last year, and we talked about that. He's like, "Yeah, I heard your music in the Felgentilt stuff. Like, we should talk." I got tons of video stuff coming up, and it's been a while. We haven't talked for probably a year now, but I want to hit him back up too if I got more time. Yeah. It's a motivator. It serves as a motivator for sure.
Absolutely. Because dude, that's something that like the only two people that I know doing that right now is like you and Halcyon, Anthony.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
If anybody wants like custom music from somebody who's like in the scene, like it's you too.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I was doing it more often. That way I could like do commission stuff if people were like, because I have like a certain style. I do love that synthwave like 80s stuff, and I can write that kind of stuff, but it's not the music I'm writing all the time. Like I mostly do like ambient, like indie type stuff. Lots of open atmospheric type music, like very like gut wrenching, like emotional sounding music. Like that's why the intro to their Felgentilt Worthesy movie is like these giant scapes of like the Austrian Alps and looking out over the lake, and it's like very open-ended music going to it, so it's very kind of like emotional feeling.
How did you? So I gotta ask, like from an artist perspective, like how did you approach that intro? Did you like watch it with like a rough take of it without music, or did you just like write something and then did you see if it went with like can you like explain to that?
Yeah,
like,
and actually I'm glad you asked that, because this is, man, like when I have time, and that's the hardest part is getting the time. But when I have time, I'm like, when I write music the way I want to write the music, I'm like that writer that like retreats to his cabin in the woods for like 3 months, no contact with the outside world, and writes. If I had the time, that's what I want to do with music. So what I do is my writing process, which I haven't done in quite a while. I did it with writing the Felgentilt pieces. But what I do is I sit in my studio, dimly lit. If the phone's in the room with me, it's on silent, face down, not even paying attention. But what I like doing is I'm a film nerd. I'm a massive film nerd, and I really like Hans Zimmer stuff. I'm pretty sure we talked about this in the last podcast. Yeah.
But who I checked out more in depth after. Like I had known about him, and I knew about his like really well known stuff. But I like dove into that.
He does some pretty incredible stuff. Episode. So what I do is I like to in the dimly lit studio, I like to have like an emotional music. I'm an emotional movie playing if I can, silent, no audio. And you can tell just by like the visual of the movie, it's like emotional, or it's like heart wrenching, or it's like pretty in depth.
And you just match that, yeah.
And what I do is I sit there with my guitar with like my delay pedal or some sort of atmospheric sound. I write a lot of like sequencing, like a lot of electronic, like stringed instruments, like cellos and violins and stuff. I'd love in the future to have like friends that actually play those instruments, be like an organic thing there. But what I'll do is I'll sit there with my guitar, watching this movie basically on mute, and just start playing and start looping stuff and get these sounds going, and like work with the emotion that you're looking at visually, and add the audio emotion with it as well. So they didn't send me clips right off the bat, but I knew their style. So I knew the intro to this movie was going to be like landscape shots, wide open spaces, sunset or sunrise type stuff, lots of drone footage over the mountains. And so I started with that vision in my head and just started writing. Yeah, you have to check it out. I'll show you today before you leave. But if anyone's listening, definitely search Felgentilt Worthesy 2018, and the intro film is the intro to that film is my music.
So tell us a little bit about like what you use like in that whole process, like as far as like
gear wise.
Gear, yeah.
So I'm kind of behind the times. I know a lot of people use Pro Tools. That's like an industry standard. I use Logic Pro, which is an Apple-based program, but they're all kind of similar as far as like layout. You know, it's almost like video editing. Adobe Premiere and Final Cut are all kind of like same idea looking. So I've got like a modest home studio. I don't have like a professional setup, but I've got enough to where I can pre-production all my stuff first and get everything the way I want it, structure-wise, mix-wise for the most part. But when I press something, I'll have a friend with a studio actually master it and do all that stuff. So gear-wise, I've got a full kit, full drum kit in my studio. I've got my guitar rig and my guitar pedals and stuff, but I'm just running an iMac in there with Final Cut Pro 10. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Logic Pro 10, which is Apple's audio, with just like an interface. And I've got like a 49 key weighted keyboard interface. So any piano, I kind of play piano. I'm super rusty, but but any piano or like stringed instruments or whatever, I can play through a weighted key. When I used to play live, that was an awesome interface to have because it emulates a like an actual piano. It's not like a keyboard where it's just like there's no weight to it.
And you're plugging up each one with a mic, yeah?
Yeah, well, the interface is plugged right into the keyboard interface is plugged right into the computer. Yeah, but as far as drums and my guitar goes, yeah, I'm micing those, which is going to help with the podcast because I've already got like audio equipment and I've got audio like experience and stuff like that. So
yeah.
The gear is modest. My guitar rig and stuff is something I've had for a long time. So I'm kind of a gear nerd with guitar. I play all Fender. I've got a 1960s reissue Fender DeVille 410 like combo amp that was still made in California before they went to Mexico to make them. So I like my Fender stuff. I like the American guitars. I'm in the process of trying to buy a dream guitar right now, which is either a Jaguar or a Jazzmaster, like a white on mother of pearl pickguard. Jazzmaster or Jaguar. It's got a super vintage look to it. I'm a guitar nerd.
Cross country tour for this guitar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and I want to integrate all that stuff too, like not just the car stuff, because a lot of people that are into cars are into music too. We've all got different tastes in music.
Oh, absolutely.
But
isn't it crazy what like all the random stuff people listen to?
Yeah,
like, in the car
exactly.
scene?
There's a lot of stuff I don't like, but I'm one of those guys that answers like, when someone, what kind of music do you like? Well, I like everything. Like I literally do. I'll entertain a whole lot of different scenes of music. But,
dude, as far as like scores are concerned, like I love like the Stranger Things, what those two dudes are doing. I forget their names.
Synthwave stuff is like my favorite. I've added a lot of that stuff. So I mean, I like old Western stuff too. Like you'll hear in the Felgen Tilt one, I have like slide guitar in it, and it gives it like this like dry Western kind of sound. But I also love synthwave stuff. Like,
dude, speaking of Western, did you watch with Quentin Tarantino's new movie?
Yeah, dude. I was there opening night.
I saw that movie twice.
Same. Twice in theaters. Corey was with me both times. Like, I'm a massive, other aside from film nerds, I'm a Quentin Tarantino guy for sure.
I love his movies.
So when we were in California, we walked Celio Drive.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, where the Manson murders took place. So we actually have that in one of the vlogs.
Oh,
like, we actually went to Celio Drive where... Like Brad Pitt comes flying down in the Carmen Ghia in that movie. Like we were at that street, and that's the actual street where the Manson murders took place. Like the actual street. So
that's legit.
So between being a film and history nerd, it was really cool to be there. Because that's where it actually took place, and that's where Tarantino filmed.
I'll have to check that out. That's
cool. So it was pretty cool to go there. My buddy Alex, who we stayed with in L.A., took us there. He took us to all the. I've been to L.A. before, but not to that particular spot. Corey had never been to California before ever.
Whoa.
So his first time there was like driving there from the East Coast. So that was like a cool experience for him. And we didn't just drive there. We drove there in an 81 right-hand drive BMW. But then we went to the Hollywood sign. We drove down Sunset. We saw like the Viper Room. We saw all the Comedy Store. We saw all the downtown stuff. I'd done all that stuff before too.
But it was cool that he was seeing that for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Dude, my whole thing, I don't know, this might sound kind of weird, but one of the main reasons why I saw that movie, the Quentin Tarantino movie twice, but I like doing things when I'm with somebody who's doing something for the first time.
Yeah.
So if they're like watching a film or going to a place that that I've experienced already. Yeah. It's kind of cool to see like somebody that, you care about or a friend like experiencing that for the first time.
It almost, for me, in a situation like that, I almost try to revisit it with new eyes.
Yeah.
Like I'd seen the movie already or whatever, and then a friend may go to see it again, and I'm like, I've already seen it, so I know what happens, but I'm like watching it with new eyes and picking up new things, and I agree. Yeah, I like that too.
So, dude, you just you've been recently getting back on your bike, right?
Yeah. So Corey has a lot to do with that too. So as we covered in the first episode, I rode full time for probably like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And as I'm getting older, and because I don't do it
It's harder.
as often, it's harder on my body. Like it's tough. I feel like every time I ride now, I like pull a muscle or something. And I stretch every morning. I do everything I can to make sure I'm like limber.
It still happens.
And yeah, so I've been taking it easy. The last couple of years, I maybe actually rode, like went to a skate park and like did tricks, that whole deal. Like twice, like once or twice a year, maybe. Like it's come down to like very seldom. Well, when we were in England this past June, we stayed with my buddy Ben Walker, who usually comes over here for Ocean City from England every year. We stayed with him for Players Classic, and he rides. And his buddy, who he shares a unit space with at a garage, has a bike too, and he rides. And they had an extra bike, and they were like, well, you guys want to go to this local skate park? I'm like, yeah, let's go. So Corey and I went with them over to like this local concrete park, which is this awesome skate park. So Corey grew up riding motocross, so he's like good on a bike just naturally. And we pedaled around and stuff. And Corey was like, I think I want to buy a bike when I get home, like a BMX bike. And I jokingly said, man, if you buy a bike, like I'll definitely ride more because we hang out all the time and we could like go ride. And I miss riding. So we got home, he went and bought a bike, and dude, we've been riding almost every single weekend this summer, which is good and bad. It's good. Cool. It's good because I'm super stoked to be back on my bike, and I forgot how much I really loved it. We have our bikes right here.
Yeah, I saw. I was like, whoa.
So that's the good part. The bad part is I'm still pulling all the muscles.
Did you guys take your bikes on the cross country tour?
No, we didn't. We had no room.
Oh,
no room.
I would have imagined.
We were packed tight in the BMW on the way out because I
drove more space with the new car.
Yeah, seriously. Well, the thing that killed us on the drive out was I drove the BMW out to California on the stock wheels with like big stock tires, and the AC Schnitzers were in the car with us, and there was like no space. And Kyron's like 6'6".
Do you think you could have driven that whole thing with the AC Schnitzers?
Yeah, maybe, but I don't want to risk it because the wheels were going with the car, and they were.
And you want them to be like.
They're a vintage 3-piece wheel with titanium hardware with small tires, and we're driving across America. The amount of road. The amount of bad roads and like road construction and all that stuff. I didn't want to hit like some bridge expansion joint in like Missouri somewhere and like bend or crack a wheel.
What'd you guys do about like? Did you like painter's tape, bra?
Yeah.
Like what'd you do?
Yeah,
like,
painter's tape. I'd never put painter's tape on any of my cars, and I knew it. Like driving 3,200 miles cross country. So both cars we did. Like basically.
Did you do hood too, or
half the hood down? Whole front end, because that 7 Series had the super rare non-fog light BBS front splitter, and I'm like, I can't break this thing. So covered the whole nose, and then like behind the front wheels on like the side skirts, which are also super rare. Then on the Century on the way home too, the Century's like in super nice shape, so we basically covered the front end of that car too. So I'm like a painter's tape like application like master now.
Yeah.
So we painter's taped them up, and the cars survived well. I lost coming into Phoenix with the BMW, I lost one of the European like bump strip pieces.
Did you hear it?
So we're coming into Phoenix. We're coming into like heavy traffic, and we're along this like Jersey barrier. There's like on ramp getting onto another highway, and I thought I could hear something like scraping, but it was very subtle. I've lost that bumper strip before, and
did it ever occur to you like, oh, this might be?
Well, I heard it, and it's right-hand drive obviously, and it was on the left-hand front side, and Kyron was up front at the time, and I'm like, Kyron, look at that window. Are we dragging anything? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And I'm like, what does it look like? He's like, oh, it's like black. And I'm like, oh no. So by the time we got back onto the freeway, the noise,
you couldn't pull over under it.
Right. We were on like an on-ramp. The noise stopped, and I was like, can you look again? And he like looks out the window. He's like, it's gone. I'm like, and then we were in I would have gone back.
How hard is it to get that piece?
Luckily I have one.
Oh, okay.
Because
can you imagine? Did it ever occur to you maybe just to take it off while you were driving?
No, because when I replaced it after I lost it the first time, I put all new OEM like clips in it, and it was all like legit. But we'd been driving for like 2,800 miles at that point, and like I just didn't think of it. And luckily, I like hoard rare European car parts, so I've got like 3 E23 Euro bumpers at my house. So so I told the owner, the new owner. I sent him a photo. I was like, dude, we lost a bump strip. And he was kind of stressing at first. Like, oh, man. Like, and I was like, it's not a big deal. Like, I've got one at home. Gotcha. I've got the clips. They're super easy to install. Like, I'll send it to you when I get home. So I was already waiting on the title for the car because those cars are exempt from title in New Hampshire. So being from California, it's going to be easier for him to register the car with a title.
Yeah.
So it takes like a month for the title to come in. So I told him, I said, when the title comes in, I'll send you both pieces together.
What was that? I know I asked Corey this, but what was that transaction like? Like, was it quick? Like, what was it like?
So I'm trying to figure out what I should and should not say. He's a cash-only guy. He bought the Lada off me.
Yeah.
And paid in small bills. And it wasn't good. It wasn't good. And so I sold the 7 Series for like double what I sold the Lada for.
Oh,
so
man,
like
you got a lot of bills.
The night before. No, man, I covered my bases this time. Because we had to fly to Seattle. We had to fly with money, which you can't.
What's the max that you can buy?
10 grand.
10 grand, yeah.
But it's almost like before you declare it or whatever. And before... I don't even know where to go with this. So
it was a smooth transaction.
The night before, it was, but like the night before we, because I hadn't met the guy in person yet. You know, we dealt with the Lada transaction, but I met guys with the transport.
Oh, for
company.
the Lada, you didn't drive it to him.
No. This guy I met, who's a mutual friend of Ramon and I's, took it out there because he was taking a couple cars out for SEMA. He had a 3-car enclosed trailer, and he was only taking 2 cars to SEMA. So he was like, "Yeah, we'll go on to LA from there." So, so he paid for the Lada in like small bills, and it was not. It was like in a brown paper bag in the truck. Yeah. So I texted him the night before the drop. That sounds super sketchy. Sounds so sketchy. But like the night before we delivered the car, I texted him and I'm like, "Hey man, just so you know, we got to do large bills on this one.
No ones.
We can't. No 5s or 10s. We can't do that this time."
Quarters.
So, and it was no problem. Yeah. And I wired money home. Got a cashier's check, and then Corey and I divvied up the rest. And no problems. No
That's
problem.
cool that it was smooth, man.
Yeah, it was fine. I was stressing about it at first, and then once we lost that bump strip in Phoenix, I was really stressing. I'm like, oh, like what's he gonna want to do now? But I had the piece, and I told him, like, listen, I'll send it to you when I get home. Super easy application, no problems.
Think you'll see that car again in person?
Well, he's a car guy, but he's not in the car community.
That's where I was going at.
He bought 2 cars.
Not, right?
He bought 2 cars off of my friend Keith, who we stayed with in Phoenix. So Keith kind of was like, yeah, he's legit. Like when he first wanted to buy the Lada and pay cash only, he wanted to like fly me to LA to pay me and then fly me home. And I'm like, we'll figure something else out. I don't know about that. But Keith's like, yeah, like
But he doesn't like bring them out to shows and stuff.
No,
right? Okay.
no. They
so
just
you
like,
may not see that car ever again.
Probably not. But he's always been like, hey, when you're in Costa Mesa again, swing by, take one of the cars out if you want to take it to like a show or something.
That's good to know.
So right? So I always think we're with good rapport with him for
That's
sure.
That's good, man.
So people are joking that like, oh, so he's gonna own the Century in a few years? Like you're gonna start selling him?
Or he's gonna own.
I mean, if he's my plug, if he's like my car guy.
He's got to have quite a good collection at this point.
He showed up. He's got some money. He's got money. But he showed up in a brand new Range Rover, like a white with the black top. And I'm not like, I don't have the money to be rolling around in those kind of cars, but the high-end stuff, there's a few things that I really like. And a high-end Range Rover is one of them. And he showed up in this thing, and I was like, dude, that thing is awesome.
That's awesome.
And he's like, got my Lada in a garage, and he's driving this thing. But yeah, so he likes oddball stuff like I do too. He just has a bigger budget than I do. But yeah, so that was cool. It's in California, it's in a garage. It's not sitting outside somewhere. It's in a good home, for the most part.
That's good, man. It's always, when you sell a car, it's good to know that it's in like good hands.
Yeah, and it wasn't a car that I just flipped. It's a car that I like pulled out of the woods and like transformed it. And
was it a little like sad?
Yeah, it was bittersweet for sure.
Yeah.
I thought by the time we got to California, having spent 3,200 miles or more in that car, I was gonna like be ready to watch it go.
Yeah.
But it was just the opposite because that car just performed better than a new car on that whole drive, and I had just the opposite. When we got to California, I was like, oh man, I really want to keep this thing.
Turn around.
Yeah, but it went fluently, and then I was able to acquire one of my dream cars for it.
So, dude, let's talk a little bit about where we are today, Ocean City.
Man.
H2OI.
The weather, man. The weather.
If you want to call it H2OI.
Yeah, I see. I know everybody does, and I know the argument. It's not H2O.
Yeah.
The strip indeed never was. Yeah. It's become this whole, like, I don't know what you want to call it. It's been like this.
Yeah, what's your take on that? I shamelessly still call it H2OI, but that's just because, like, bad habit.
I get it. And to be honest, I'm neutral about the whole thing. But I know guys that, like, helped, like,
start it.
kind of put it on in the early days, I guess. And they're kind of rightfully so a little bit like, dude, it's not H2O. And it's like, yeah, you're right. You're right. It's in Atlantic City now, and the Strip never really was a part of the show. And some people would argue that it's a part of the reason why it's not here. It is the reason why it's not here.
It is.
Yeah. So all the merchandise that I make for our meets and stuff, I always just put the Strip and Ocean City on it. Like I've never branded H2O with any of the merchandise that we sell down here because it's not H2O. So that's where I stand on it. But if when people call it H2O, I don't get upset.
it's
I'm
whatever.
like, don't call it H2O. I get whatever. It's whatever. It is what it is. There's way too many people down here to try to put a lid on it now. You know what I mean? Like it's out of the bag now. Like this is just completely insane.
Yeah.
And as you know, the forecast this weekend is perfect. So last night,
pretty perfect.
we got here Wednesday midday. Wednesday night and Thursday night were like the usual Friday and Saturday nights. So being Friday today, I can
Aren't
only
you glad that
imagine.
it's not raining this year?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
rained so much in the past.
You've seen the car I'm in this year, right?
Yeah.
The 2 years I brought the Corvair, which are not ideal for driving in the rain, were the hurricane years.
Oh my God.
So when I was bringing the 700, I'm like watching the forecast, and it's like it's
Dude, it's
cloud in the sky right
gorgeous.
now. So, but that brings everybody out. So it's just gonna be full
Dude,
on insanity.
it's crazy how wild it was last night, and then kept telling myself it's only Thursday.
Yeah, it's gonna be full.
Dude, the best thing about H2O or sorry, Ocean City is like when the cars start coming in Friday night.
Yeah.
It's like
It's gonna be gridlock tonight.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was gridlock last night.
Yeah.
And man, it's so much fun.
I
I'll
know.
be here every year. People are
I
coming.
know, man.
Like I love it
I
so
keep
much.
telling myself to do it, and it's funny because I keep telling people that I had never been. It's like, just come.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Sometimes you'll see a car that's like super cool drive by, and then you never see it again.
And the people too. Like my friend Victor comes over from Moscow, Russia. We got another couple of friends from Russia that are here with the ILB Drivers Club guys who
Yeah.
come over from Ireland every year and
Yeah,
make
there's a
their
group of
strip
guys
video.
here from Japan this year. Like
Yep.
it's cool.
It's
cool.
man, it's crazy. We've got friends in from California, from BC, Canada. We got some friends from Omaha, Nebraska that came in. Fred from 1320 actually drove here.
Oh, wow.
We had one of our meets in Omaha, and Fred actually helped us set that up. But yeah, people come from all over the place. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And you're doing the keychains again this year.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that in case for people who don't know about them?
This is the fourth installment. So basically, what we started doing was we started doing Governors Club meets here in Ocean City on the Strip every year. And in 2016, when I first started the Lazer business, I decided to start doing like a year-specific keyring in a different medium, different material every year that we do the meet. So 2016, I did a wooden keyring, had the Ocean City logo on it, the Governors Club logo. It said, we did it at sunset, so it was called the Sunset Meet. And I made like 100 of them, and we do them for like 10 or 15 bucks a piece. And they did well. Second year, 2017, I made a red leather keyring. Same deal, different logo, different medium, the year on it. And more people were like, oh, I got to get this year's because I got last year's. So I'm like, oh, that's rad. Do you want two?
It's like a collectible.
So I was like, all right, that's awesome. So 2018, last year, I did a black double-sided leather keyring with the logo and a different design on it, different shape keyring. Same deal. People were like, last year was insane. I did 150 last year, and they were sold out by like Friday morning.
So you're obviously doing more this year.
So I did 250 this year, just under 250. And this year I did a 2-color acrylic keyring. And I thought I would have one here. I don't. But it's a 2-color acrylic. So when you laser engrave the surface, it reveals a core color. So it's a black surface with it's a black surface with a gold core. So it's black and gold. And then what I did was I laser cut a hole in it, and then I laser cut these leather straps that hold the split ring to it with a rivet. So it's a black and gold with a gold rivet, leather and acrylic, like multi-medium.
That's cool that you use that as an outlet to sort of like try new things or just like switch it up.
This year's been nuts, man. Like nuts. There's been people like it's a scavenger hunt now. It's so crazy. There's a lot of groups of people I've run into when we're out shooting the 700 somewhere. They're like, we've literally been cruising the Strip for the last like 3 hours of looking for the 700 because we know that's where the keyrings are. So when we find the 700,
That's where the
we
keyrings
found
are.
the keyrings. And people are watching our stories, like looking for like numbers of buildings or street numbers.
And finding you guys.
And we'll be out way out in the middle of nowhere, and people will come driving out. Like, can we get a key ring? I'm like, how'd you guys find us? They're like, oh, well, you posted a story, and we saw like this building, and we knew that was down at this street. And I'm like, you guys are crazy. So it's become this like super fun thing where I want to keep doing it simply because everybody expects it now. They're like, oh, we're gonna get next year's key ring too. So it started as a thing to have available at our meet. Now it's a thing that like we may not even have for the meet now because people are buying them before you're there. So it's super fun. But again, going back to making something you love your job, that's what this is becoming. people are super stoked on it because they're on holiday. They're bringing money to spend because they're on vacation, and $15 for a key ring is just like a part of their
It's like a good
trip.
remembrance of the event. Yeah.
But in turn, I'm working, and so being in Ocean City, it's not quite as relaxing as I'd like it to be, but it's like my job. So I'd love to continue stuff like this.
And you're doing all these obviously with the resources and the tools from your business, Night Lazer.
Yeah.
How are things going with that?
It's good. It really is. I can't complain. This is only my 4th year doing this, and so I am riding that typical self-employment, like feast or famine income wave,
Yeah.
So the first year I did it, I was super stressed if it got quiet for a couple of weeks. I'm like, what am I doing? I got to go to McDonald's and get a job or something. I don't know what's going on. But now finishing up my 4th year, going into my 5th year now, it allows me, it's almost like a breath of fresh air when it slows down a little bit. Because I know it'll pick back up. I'm used to this ride now. So when it slows down, that's when I can work on music. I can work on the car projects. It's going well, all in all. I'm excited to get home and crank out some keyrings for you guys for the show next week.
I'm looking forward to those.
I'm doing some for Nick Pontario for the show. He's going to give some out at the show. Yeah, it's good. It's either like complete insanity, and since I work from home, I'm grinding 7 days a week. Because I get typical people like, oh, you travel all the time. Must be nice. I'm like, listen, you're out partying with all your friends Friday and Saturday night, or maybe Monday through Sunday night. Like, yeah, I'm in my shop in New Hampshire doing nothing. So these, like traveling, this is like my equalization. You know what I mean? But even the traveling turns into work too. But Night Lazer is going well. I'm super grateful to everyone that has been like returning work. That's the best feeling in the world. I've been making a lot of keyrings for like the Rotoform guys and stuff. And like when Jason will text me and be like, we need more keyrings. I'm like, this whole thing's working. Like this whole business and like generating a network of like clients and stuff. Like it feels so good to start from nothing and then have people be like, hey, we're sold out. We need more. And it's like, awesome. This is good. So
what are your goals for that, for Night Lazer, just to sort of keep riding the wave that you're riding now? Or do you have higher ambitions for it?
I think ideally, my goal with Night Lazer would be to fade it out of commission work. And I guess as an entrepreneur, because I don't consider people are like, I'm an entrepreneur. I don't think I'm an entrepreneur because I don't have that blood or that DNA. I think I've got to work for it. I got to stop and think about how, I got friends that are like, got their hands in so many different pots. And it's like, oh, that's what it's like to be an entrepreneur. For me, I think what I want to do with Night Lazer, if Night Lazer took off and was super steady, it would behoove me to have employees working Night Lazer. But just thinking about that gives me heartburn. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about like, it's so tenacious and insane right now. I can't imagine what it's going to be like to have quality control with like employees. So what I'd like to do, which may not be the best like financial decision, what I'd like to do is fade Night Lazer out and specifically make Governors Club stuff. Have like TGC be a shop and have the podcast and all that stuff like be like generating revenue through one avenue or another.
But not do commission work, right?
Well, I mean, for friends I would too, but I think ideally I'd love to have Night Lazer be like under the umbrella of TGC and makes all of TGC's merchandise, but have TGC be doing enough to where it's almost a full-time job making TGC merchandise. It's sort of like a switch almost. Yeah, and I can like cut out the middleman. So I'm making all of my own merchandise. All the overhead is taken care of. Or things may change. The Lazer, I didn't grow up always wanting to do that. So if that can become a tool to continue making merchandise for TGC or whatever I want to do, that'll be awesome. Yeah. I'm curious to see where that goes.
Yeah. Dude, so you're always like obviously collaborating with different companies and like working and doing like your Night Lazer products with them. Speaking of like collaborating, I just saw on your Instagram like you not too long ago had a drawing of the Corvair done.
Oh my goodness!
By Rika.
Yeah,
like, tell us a little bit about that.
Rika or Reka. I don't know how you pronounce her last name. Takux is her name, and
beautiful drawing.
Unbelievable. So there's this. Yeah, so there's this girl from Hungary, and I'm pretty sure she's friends with my friend Emi, who started a magazine called Rusty's. And we actually shot the Corvair for that magazine a couple years ago. And he's like done the magazine just himself. So issue 2, which has my Corvair in it, is still kind of in the process of being done. But I think that's how she found me on Instagram, was through Emi. She's like 20 years old. She's an artist. And she does like automotive drawings. And
beautiful. I actually DM'd her because I want to get a like that same sort of drawing of the TSX, and potentially like my old Civic.
I'd be curious to see if she does that because she made it sound like she doesn't do commission work.
Oh wow.
But
yeah, I mean,
but if
I'd
you-
be too. I would seriously pay whatever.
Yeah. This is the crazy thing is she just posted like an Instagram story once and like tagged me in it of like an initial sketch of like just the front.
Oh,
end of the
you didn't
Corvair.
even commission her to do it? She just did it?
No. She,
Oh.
yeah, that's what she.
I got
literally-
the wrong impression of
I
that.
got. Well, that's fine. Maybe she'll start doing it. I mean, because she's got the talent to do it.
Dude, did
and,
you
like, make
actually
money.
get like the physical copy?
Here's what
of it?
happened. I'll
Yeah.
start at the beginning. So
Yeah.
I got tagged in an Instagram story, and it was like a preliminary like pencil sketch. Of
Yeah,
the
I
front
saw
of the
that
car.
when it was white,
And it
right?
was
Yeah.
clear that it was going to be insane,
Yeah, I
right?
saw
And she
that.
just tagged me and said like new piece started or something like that. And
I would have been like,
I was like, whoa. So I messaged her and I'm like, whoa, like I can't wait to see this come together. Thank you so much for drawing my car. My friend Dan Crosley, who shot the Corvair for Rusty Magazine, provided her with like a high res
for
photo.
her yeah.
Because that car's got all sorts of crazy imperfections and rust, and the detail in that
You
car
need
is just
that kind of a
mental.
photo,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So Dan provided that, and as it went on, she'd like post like more like status updates of like the car, and then once she started like doing the, I don't even know if it was pastel, but once she started adding color to the rust and stuff, I was like, this is insane. So finally, she posted like a half of the car like all painted and like done. And she was still finishing the back, I guess. And I messaged her and I was like, listen, I would love to have a print. Like if you would make a print
Or the
of this.
original.
Well, no, I started with print.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
she's an artist.
Yeah.
Like that. Like
She
no,
probably wants that, yeah.
I said, would you be willing to sell me a print of that? I said, I would just love to have that framed and on my wall in my house. And she retorted with, I don't normally make prints of my work, and I don't usually sell my work either. And I was like,
Damn.
And I was like, oh, typical, I guess. You know, like I figured that would be the case. And I was like, I was so bummed because there was a guy, not the bunny truck, but there was a guy that made an 8th scale diecast model of my car to the T. The unsafe plate, the yellow inner lights. Dude, he chopped the roof and rusted it, and he even had the cross pattern, the roof pattern that my car has on the roof, like, and he wouldn't sell it. I'm like, I gotta have this. He's like, I don't sell them. And I'm like, oh. So now I'm going through the same thing with this girl that's drawing this beautiful drawing of my car. She won't make a print, doesn't want to sell it. But she comes back and she goes, but I'd send you the original if you send me a Governor's Club t-shirt. Whoa. And I was like, excuse me? She goes, yeah, I've always wanted a Governor's Club t-shirt. So I'd send you the original drawing if you send me a TGC shirt.
I'll send you 50
Dude,
shirts.
I was like, that's the least I can do.
Yeah.
That's the least. So anyway, so I made her some stuff. I sent her a couple shirts. I sent her one of the new shirts too, the Tour Across America shirt, and some key rings and stuff. And I still feel like that wasn't enough. I was trying to get her PayPal out of her, and she didn't want any money. But I sent her all that stuff, and she sent me the original. And as you saw, probably I posted it on Instagram, and I've got a bit about it in one of the YouTube episodes. I framed it, and it's on my wall now. And when you see that thing in person, I mean,
Dude, it looks great in photos.
Corey and the guys will tell you. When you look at that thing in detail, you can just stare at it. Like all the imperfections of the patina is emulated to the car.
Wow.
Like it's
That's amazing.
she's talented, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I
let
shot her a DM.
I have to find her Instagram right now because we have to
Yeah, I can pull it up on the screen for the podcast.
we have to
yeah.
shout her out because it's
It's awesome, man.
REKAWVR. Reka WVR on Instagram.
So good.
Go,
Yeah, I'll put a link in my description for this. Dude, it's so good.
go check her stuff out. She is incredibly talented and, you know, just like a young girl from Hungary that just has this crazy talent. I hope she makes it her gig because she could
She
totally
should,
do
man.
it.
That's
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, gotta mention that.
So I feel very honored if you're listening to this, Takex. Thank you so much because that was just
That was
mind blowing.
awesome.
And it's got a good home.
So, dude, you just recently turned 30, right? Didn't you just have a birthday come up?
I'm going to be 35 in a few
Oh,
months.
man.
But thank you. Dude, so
Happy if you're in March, right? It was your
March
birthday?
coming up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be 35. Man, I'm going to be 35 this
What,
upcoming March.
what was I gonna say? As you reflect on your life, like you know, what have you learned so far, or like want to learn, or do you have any advice for anybody creeping up on that milestone?
Oh, dude, I tell my friends this all the time. Corey's going to be 30 next month as well.
Those are the golden years, man.
Dude, I'm telling you, with the exception of like a few hiccups this particular year, 30s have been the best years of my life. Best. Like,
Same.
as I came up on 30, I wasn't stressing about the number. I know some people can stress about it because they see their life like passing by or whatever. But at 30 is when I decided to start a business, start working for myself, start traveling abroad every year if I could afford it, which luckily I have been able to. it's been so good. I use the number 30 as like an excuse to make a life change, or from that point forward to make the next decade like memorable in the best way possible, and to live life enjoying it and not like working hard is important. I come from a traditional family in the woods of New Hampshire that worked themselves to the bone and still enjoyed life, but I come from a hardworking family. So I've got that like ingrained in my DNA for the most part, but like you can't burn yourself out, you know? So approaching 30, I just looked at that as an excuse to like make a change in my life, both professionally and personally, and just do what you love, man. Like next thing you know, we're going to be 40, or we're going to be 45, maybe married with kids or whatever. And then be like, oh, I wish I did that.
You might as well do that all now.
Yeah. So anyone that's another trip around the sun, whether or not you're approaching 30, whether or not you're approaching 20, 25, and I mean,
do it.
Take every day and make every day worth it. Make it worth it. You know, like I feel sometimes that like you get stuck in this 9 to 5 gig where you commute to work, you're miserable, you're watching the clock every single day waiting for you to get out of work. Then you sit in traffic again. Then you go to the gym, you make food, you go to bed, and then you have like a week off a year maybe. Yes, repeat. You know, if you've been thinking about starting a home business, if you've been thinking about taking that trip, even if you're alone, I mean, if you just want to go to England and you're nervous to do it, book the ticket and just do it. Because like what? I mean, I don't know. There's no better way than to just like break out of your shell and just go, you know? And so when I turned 30, that's what I used. I used that as an excuse where it's like, I'm going to travel more. I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to compromise on like what I want in my life or who I want in my life, you know?
Or settle or do anything
that's it.
like
Yeah.
that.
So, man, it's a breath of fresh air. I feel good.
I'm glad to hear that, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah. So, dude, I'm all out of questions, man. Just wanted to see if you had any like closing thoughts or shout outs, or if you wanted to like let anybody know anything.
Yeah. We didn't even have a timer going on this. We have no idea like what time we started. This could be 2 hours. This could be 45 minutes.
I got the timer on.
Oh, you do?
Right
oh, okay.
What are we at? 2, bro.
Well, 2 hours is a good podcast.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah,
man. What do you want to tell everybody, man?
Man, we could do some shout outs. I mean, I kind of just encapsulated like how I feel, I guess. That's where I stand emotionally. But man, shout outs, Bag Riders, Airlift Performance for helping out on the projects. Seriously, if you guys have air suspension needs, hit up Bag Riders and Airlift Performance. Those guys are awesome.
The only people you should be hitting up, man.
Absolutely.
In my opinion.
Yeah, the Airlift boys are from Michigan. Bag Riders boys are from Vermont. Good people all around, super informative. My dad, as always, like helping me on all my insane big projects. We build those cars together. Being able to work out of his shop is a blessing for sure. Can't thank my parents enough for just putting food on the table when I was a kid. You know, if we want to go back that
far. Getting you to where you are.
You for having me, man. This has been awesome.
It's been a pleasure, dude.
I mean, it's helped motivate me to like do my own thing too. So
dude, and like I'm not sure if I've said this before, but if you have any questions or any suggestions or for your podcast, man, like I'm sure you got it all like, you know, planned out, but
I've been trying to be methodical about it, so I'm not like a complete rolling disaster. But I've been on my friend Josh Garcia, who's started Revival Motoring podcast. They're like 60 episodes in now, something like that, like automotive specifically based.
Wow.
We did a podcast about if I ever sold the 7 Series, what car would I buy if I ever sold it? And I said a Toyota Century. And lo and behold, we got it all done on the same trip. So we're going to do a recap with him soon too about that whole trip and stuff.
It's all about the recaps, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, for you for helping motivate me on the podcasting, because it was something that was on a back burner for a long time. And now it's like front burner. It's like, all right, we're going to do it. 7 Series is gone. I'm going to spend some of that money on getting all that stuff set up. Corey, for sure, for helping out on this trip. MVP for sure. Helping film, helping drive, helping to start this whole shop that we want to do. Yeah. And I'm sure it's vice versa too. I'm sure he's like stoked that there's been a like a feedback, same level of.
Yeah, I feel like you guys are excitement. each like helping each other with motivation.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you know, you always need like that person to like push you.
It has to happen. It's hard to reach deep and do it on your own, which I felt like I've had to do living in a small town in New Hampshire, you know, but so Corey's been instrumental in all that. Anyone that has met up with us or has helped out in any sort of way, let us crash on their floors on this last trip. I could go through a laundry list a mile long of people that have helped us out. But I think that's probably it, man. There'd be tons of stuff I'll think of after
I know,
this.
right?
But,
You're like, darn.
but man, 2 hours is solid.
Yeah, hell yeah,
podcast,
dude.
man.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for doing this, man. I'm so
Absolutely.
glad we got to do this. I know. I'll be honest. Like, it was just something that, like, an idea that came in my head like a couple of days ago, and I was like, you know what? Like, it's been a while since we last talked. Like, you've been doing a lot, and like, let's just talk.
I think this one more so because you were on your second podcast when we first sat
I
down.
know it's been such a long time, and I took that break for a year. And
Yeah.
like, now I'm back, and it's like, it'll be right.
But for you, it was like your second podcast, and it was my first podcast. So like structuring, and it felt stiffer. You know, it was almost like question
Now
answer
we're just
type
all
stuff.
like-
Yeah, like it's so much easier because I've been on a few podcasts since then, and I've watched more, and it's just and it's something that I want to start too. So super relaxed, super natural. I'm excited to start one too. We'll have to have you on.
No, I'll do it. I'm so down.
It'd be so good.
I'm down.
Yeah, absolutely. It basically would be the same thing.
Same
we're doing
thing,
now,
you know. But yeah, dude, thanks for doing this again. And
Thank
again,
you,
this has
guys.
been Christian Lazer with How It's Done podcast with a good friend of mine, John Ludwick Jr. And yeah, thanks again, man.
Appreciate it. Thank
Awesome,
you, guys.
man. Yep, cool.
Done and done.
Oh, man. Dude, I like the headphones, man.
Yeah, they're
I like
good.
them. I like them.
You know how far away you get from the mic.
I know.
You know?
Dude, there were a couple episodes I had done before without them, and like, yeah, they're like, it's chill.
Once
whatever,
once
but-
you're editing, you'll realize, oh, I was way too far
Yeah,
away. The
yeah,
whole then
it's-
you got to
yeah,
EQ it. Then your
you
ambient
grant
noise goes up
music,
with it,
yeah.
and having it's crucial.
But
So
that was fun, man.
heck yeah,
Glad
man.
we did that. Dude.
Appreciate it.
And it didn't feel like 2 hours.
No, it didn't. No.
We're at 2 hours and.